Tell you about my personal view. I think platforms like, no offense, platforms like yours are amazing, but some people enjoy the attention and the stage so much that feeds the monsters in them, and they keep on wanting more and more and more. And people then start evolving to what they're not, because this is not necessarily natural.
What's not natural?
It's not natural for people to be dialoguing while there's a huge observance of people. That's why parliament happens in closed doors.
Supposed to.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, technically that's the democratic explanation of it. All I'm saying is, a lot of the things we do are not natural, and people start evolving to suit the environment, not the other way around. I think that's where we go wrong. They always say, darkies, we always complain.
So I'm gonna lean forward, says, don't stress, bro.
Right?
Sorry.
Darkies always complain, and you would say the crabs and the barrel situation. It's not a natural environment. We are not in a natural environment. We're in a country where we are allowed to have a limited view. You're supposed to play nice, and we are so used to accepting the wrong things in the society. I mean, we all know that a person my age that is of a different color gets scorecarded differently. The matrix does not allow for that. We are not judged as equal. It doesn't matter where I live in the suburbs or not. You'd go back a layer and say, the learnerships, internships. Why is that we don't find white people in those things?
They don't need it.
It's not about needing it.
They jump the queue.
No, it's not about needing it. It's not about...
No, they don't need it. So one of the things I've had to explain to specifically us who are kind of new in money and those things is the whole idea of going to an institution like a good school is so that people can rubber stamp that, look, you've been trained and conditioned in a way that we approve of. And then the reason you get a diploma, degree, etc., is so that we can be like, look, here's your key to the door. If my dad is a billionaire, I don't need to get a key into the door. I can just jump. They're not needing it. Look, they need some type of training. I think that's why Johan Rupert's dad sent him to New York, to Wall Street. But they don't need it in the sense that with black people, it's like, prove to me, big white businessman, that I can trust you with my little assets. Whereas the little white kids, like, we already trust.
I totally disagree. Is it prove it to me or accept the terms that I lay for you? Because we are not measured equally.
No, that's true.
If we were measured equally, it'd be a different environment altogether. I mean, I believe the reason we excel at sports is because you can't cheat the 11 planes. You can't. It's very difficult, right? Yeah. Naturally, we're survivors. We understand hardships. We understand the disadvantages we face on a day-to-day basis. And that's why I was speaking to my nephew the other day, and I was saying, don't you find it weird? You're so easily... you're easily thoughtful, or you feel compassionate towards a white person that's a bagger as opposed to a black person. When it's a black person, they just piss off your soul. They piss you off. You don't even want to see, you don't see them. But when it's a white person, we see them.
Yeah.
And we want to give to them, but we can't give to our own. And for me, that says a lot about the generational stripping of our humanity. Africans used to be the most beautiful people. I mean, one of my first experiences coming to Joburg, I got lost, got on the wrong taxi. I had a lady that was a domestic ask me to get off with her without knowing me. She fed me. She found my mom's numbers. She phoned my mom. She said, don't worry, you'll get him tomorrow morning. Do you know what I mean? And it's always played in my head that it's such a selfless thing that this person shared a meal with me and she didn't have enough for the whole week. Right? And it's always those that don't have are thoughtful about the larger audience. Yeah. And then I think it plays in terms of, we are so used to the word authority, and you got to play by it. And I realized that at a very young age. I was blessed enough. I had a grandma that used to push the envelope in terms of the discussions she used to have with me. Before there was Google, there was things like encyclopedias, there was Reader's Digest. My grandmother subscribed to those things, and she would insist I read. She would insist I hang around her, and we work, and she would teach me things, and I hated it. I was like, this woman, I just want to have fun. But the older I got, I started understanding the underlying lessons, the layers in how you deal with people. I watched her deal with people, you know what I mean? She was that person sometimes she would share our meal even with those that were less fortunate. And I'd be like, but we're not going to have this tomorrow. What if I want it tomorrow?
Yeah.
And I didn't understand that. And once you understand that cardinal principle, foundation, boto, you understand how to build, right? But we are sent to schools that don't even teach kindness anymore, that are openly discriminating. There are little silos at school. I find this so funny. And I think with my daughter, when she started preschool, I started observing that parents don't greet each other in the 4 years. You know, they greet their people that look like them, right? And it was painful for me. I kept quiet, I think, the first year, watching how my daughter would say hello to everybody, and people would just pass. It used to irk my soul, and I kept quiet. And we had a parents' meeting. And it was so funny. We were the numbers, yet we were not the voice in the meeting.
Who's we?
Black people.
Okay.
You know, we were the numbers, but we're not the voice. And I realized I don't want to play by those rules anymore. I genuinely, I'm at a stage and a place in my life where if you shove me, I shove you back. You know,
reciprocate energy.
It needs to happen, eh? It needs to happen. If we want to avoid a revolution, we need to start pushing back. We need to stop accepting. I mean, I was saying to somebody I do business with that imagine if we close down the township and we say no white business is welcomed.
No, their businesses will collapse.
And we start building and we start holding our money and we start building. We'll get a license in your banking. We'll start getting things done. We don't speak.
It sounds like a Bantustan.
Not really. They worked, by the way. They worked. Eh?
We're not allowed to speak about them because they were during apartheid. Therefore, everything is
nonsense,
bad.
Man. Nonsense. They produced most of the accountants that work for government. Eastern Cape produced that. So
we need to start this officially. I'd like to welcome you, Lesego Modise, on the Penuel show. The Penuel show is now on the Convo channel. It's been confusing a lot of people. But Debs has got this vision of building this YouTube channel that has all types of dope content, and the Penuel show being one of them. And initially we arm wrestled because I was like, nah, I want to be like Joe Rogan. And I think at some point I really applied my mind and I was like, look, I think if the Penuel show, if I can own the Penuel show, you can own the channel. And then I'll just come and squat. As I'm squatting here at Tribal Media House, I'll come and squat on the channel and we'll see how we make it work. And since we did that, a lot of people are like, yeah, some white person has captured you guys, bought you guys out, etc. Which, look, is the inferiority complex we have. I'm a huge fan of yours. I've been yearning for you to sit down and tell your story, even though I think you had cold feet even last night. I give a quote that you gave to me that has been gnawing at me. I mention it every now and then when I sit with someone that, you know, I met this gent, really amazing businessman, and he speaks about how our ancestors back in the day prayed, you know, and they had all these rituals, and the universe doesn't work in our time. It works in its own time, and it almost feels like those prayers are now being answered, and it's up to us to now rise up and do something about it. So I'm looking forward to listening to you. I always enjoy listening to you, and I'm looking forward to, in my own little way, exposing you to my little world that may not know who you are. So we have to start it from the beginning. Sure. In summary format. Where are you from? How did you get into business? How do we get to Joburg?
I'm a son of a Botswana man and a mother South African, but grandparents from Botswana originally. Okay. I was born in transit. My mom was actually the youngest, and I think at some point Robert Subuka's secretary.
That's dope.
The reason I was born in Mafikeng, she was being detained while she was moving back to Botswana to be with her aunt after her mother passed.
Why was she detained? Because of working with Sobuka?
Well, she was in the list. Yeah, there used to be these lists around, and she was on that list. And yeah, so she was detained. And my grandmother got out, stubborn her. My grandmother said, I'm not going away without her. You either give me her or you take the child, which was me at the time. And that's how she got released. And so I bounced between Kimberley, Botswana family roots there. Came to Pretoria 97, 98, I think. And I realized a lot of things immediately. You know what I mean? I come from coming from a small town where you keep to yourself and you know what you want to get out of it. you realize very quickly what the opportunities are, because I think people that live in a space where there's opportunities don't see them.
That is true.
I realized that very quickly, and I needed to understand how to play this game or how to play the field. And first lesson was, you got to know who's the alpha in the room in any place that you walk into.
Okay.
And it became about
first lesson, figure out who's the boss.
Figure out who's the boss, figure out what people need, and set yourself apart from everybody. So I grew up in an environment where when you played sports, you were, in most cases, the only black guy amongst white boys. And you didn't look like them.
Yeah. You went to decent white schools, or what we call decent white schools.
Something like that.
Sure.
Right? And when you chill, being Kimberley is a colored community. When you chill with the coloreds, you don't have a colored accent, so you get shoved out.
But you look a bit colored though.
That's what I'm saying. You look like them, but you don't have an accent.
Yeah.
So, excuse me. So you get shoved out. When you're in Kasi, I didn't really belong because I couldn't relate to a lot of things. I get bored very quickly. I mean, I used to get bored. The same thing that's still happening today, where guys wake up in the morning and they stand in the street and this one comes with a cup and they speak about everybody except how do we get better? How do we change the landscape? How do we build? And that shit, my soul. And I buried myself in reading and sports.
You mentioned your grand. Why did your grand want you to read? What did your grand do? What was unique about her?
My grandmother and my uncle were cardinal to that. My uncle was a newspaper person. My uncle would buy the newspaper and put it there and say, you read, you'll tell me. And I didn't like that.
Yeah.
Because I didn't understand. Why am I reading this bloody thing? My grandmother was about, you need to understand things. You can't have one view. You need to have an understanding of the world. And my grandmother, being a classical grandparent, was raising her kids as well. So there was a bunch of us in that space. But how I was treated was always different. Yes, it has its downsides where I felt like I was a bit marginalized because my mom wasn't around. But it had its upsides because quietly she taught me fundamentals of business and people. You know, my grandmother she knew everybody in the area. She knew what their shortfalls were. She would focus on how she enables that. I mean, yeah, we sold alcohol, you know what I mean? But for her, it wasn't necessarily about taking people's money and giving them booze. It was also about helping where she could. And in her silence, she had a huge voice, right? And I think that's what I took away from that. I realized that at age 9, 10, after she had challenged me to do certain things, I mean, from selling ice blocks to selling veggies in the area, to having a soccer team. We had a small soccer team. We used to play boys in the neighborhood and us, you know what I mean? And I wasn't really good at soccer at first. But my relentless nature is that I refuse anybody's better than I am. I'm built badly. I refuse. I'm of view, you give me time, you enable me, you'll regret it or you'll love it. Either way.
This was all in Kimberley?
Well, yeah. I was the youngest. I became the youngest coach that won a championship to a team, basketball-wise. And when I left, I was so excited about it because I felt like I was drowning.
How old were you? Sorry, if you don't mind me asking.
My teens, early teens.
What's early teens?
17, 18.
17, 18, coaching a basketball team.
Yeah, we won a championship.
It's very important that
there are records to that. We coached it. And I believed in doing it. You know, I one of the first lessons I learned, right, when corporal punishment was abolished, my grandmother would say, we need to figure out how I deal with you. She'd say, go stand against the wall. And you go stand, you look at the wall. And she's like, what do you see? You'd say the wall. She'd say, okay, keep on standing. And one day I said, TV. And she said, N. And I said, people. And she said, N. And I started getting the concept that the wall is the problem. We got to see beyond a problem. Most of us focus on this, the problem, not the solution. And that day, it rang the bell in me and it resonated with me. I don't like focusing on what the problem is because we all know what the problem is. If people focused on solutions, we'd probably be a happier people, right? And we learn to be honest with each other. I think honesty is harsh, but I'm having the best relationship with my partner because of honesty, because I can be blunt about things. I don't like this about you. You're not a nice person today, but I don't want to walk away from you. Right? But it's also having a common goal. You know what I mean? Africans used to have a common goal. It was getting rid of the government of the day.
Yeah.
Right? it's said that today certain surnames are being picked and catalyzed over certain surnames.
Yeah.
You know, and I always wonder, does that give comfort to those that have lost their people, firstly? And then secondly,
does it give them comfort?
Yeah, of the fact that you lost people and they're celebrating these people and they're mentioning, 2% of those that are dead? I lost family members. I've got people that are emotionally scarred, uncles that are scorched because of this. We've got family members, houses that were blown up. You know what I mean? We have people all over the world because of this. And I've got a grandmother that's in Botswana that doesn't want to come back.
Your grandmother?
Yeah, because
she eventually moved.
Yeah, she moved a long time ago. You know, she doesn't want to come back, and I understand the why. It's painful, right?
And the pain is not just maybe apartheid and the struggle. It's this new black government that is almost
a lot of things.
Blacklisted certain families.
It's a lot of things. I think it's a lot of things, but I think the cardinal pain is the fact that we, I think I said this to you this morning, if not the other day. I like sharing this with people. Wouldn't it be so different if the lion told the story, not the hunter? And if the hunting fields were leveled? So we find ourselves in a position where the hunters are telling the story, right? We're being put in these rooms and being conditioned. We're being told words. You got to be rich. You got to aspire for affluence. But we're forgetting the first lessons we learn. One of the first lessons I learned is that I am because there's a community. We don't do that anymore. That's why kids don't stand up when elderly people walk in, because the system is saying, remember, these are the new rules. And every time there's a layer of rules, they move you further to where you're supposed to be, which is interesting. I like saying politics like family, right? We all have family members we don't like. We all have family members that would steal from us, that are unscrupulous, that are lazy. It's like family, but you don't give up on your family. But our family has one more dynamic. There's an us and them, whites and blacks. I can't speak for colors because they don't really have a voice right now. That's the reality, right? So if it's us and them, black and white, why, when it suits people, we deal from it's business, we must move on. When it suits people, it's on us and them. When it suits people, we must get over. Africans are always the ones that are rushed to get over situations that are done to them.
Of course. But we know why.
Whether we know or not, for me, you know what? We know a lot of things. The question
but we know why they want us to get over it.
Sure.
Yeah.
We know a lot of things. The question is, what are we doing about it?
Yeah.
Right? And when I mean doing, I'm realizing that you have to be radical sometimes to shake people. I mean, for the longest of time, I didn't want to sit down with anybody. I didn't want any attention unless it's giving this product, this PR, and moving away. But I'm realizing with people that I've dealt with over the years, they humble me and they remind me of what a voice I have, and how I use that voice is what I'm learning to understand, whether that voice is going to be an enabler or not, right? And I'm also learning that government is a trap, it's a scam. We can't depend on people that are not dependable. Our mothers raised us without our fathers because they were not there. They understood that principle very well. Scarred as they are, they didn't make excuses, they made it work. Yet, we are looking for a father figure in a government that's not present. They're not present. We need to be honest about this. They're not present. Some of the people, there are good people in government, don't get me wrong, but they are lazy, bad people. 2006, we developed a solution. We went to Northern Cape. I figured that's where I'm from. They're going to hear me out. Yay. I'm going to do kumbaya. We pitched the solution. And the value add for that was, I was saying, I had Rotary International that was willing to build libraries, to give books to libraries.
Yeah.
We wanted to give books to libraries. I wanted every school to have a library. And as a business then, we would donate like 10 workstations and enable communities. And it made sense to no one in government to understand this. So we missed that. And speaking about when I went for the presentation, we pitched And one of the ladies that was there was an old principal of mine. I looked up to her. Amazing soul. She now was working in education. And then she goes to me, she says, hey, wow, you said a mouthful. I'm thinking, okay, we're getting somewhere. And she says, you just need to be careful. You can't walk into people's places and undress them like that. There's a price to that. And I was so confused because I didn't understand what she was talking about. I got home and I was like, oh, so the truth is the problem. The system does not want the truth. And
especially when it makes people look bad.
And that kind of made me go back into my corner and deal with the world differently. So I believe in building with those that want to build with me. We build, we work together, we move on. You play your part, I play my part, we move on.
Yeah.
But the system we live in does not believe in that. Does not play like that. You're borrowed. That's why we don't have black sustainable businesses. I mean, and I understand why black businesses want to deal with government. Government is an easier choice. Yeah, it's a corrupted system. The tender system doesn't work, but the probabilities of a black person getting a tender from government are higher than getting a bank loan. Let that sink in for a second. It's the reality. We might bash them, right? And I partly understand why some people, when they have 5 rand and they want to buy these flashy cars, they want to look expensive, right? I always say to people, I don't want to look anything other than what I am. I don't want to look any type of way, from an expensive point of view or anything. I live my life my way, and I'm blessed enough I have a family that respects that about me. The fact that I sometimes can spend months without engaging family, not because I hate them, because I thrive in my quietness, in my loneliness. I work better that way. I'm more functional. And I sometimes view even family as a deterrent, because black tax is inevitable. I'm not going to run away from it. I'm not complaining about it. I understand the complexities of where I am. But we can't build, because the minute you get out of the crap bucket, like there's weight that wants to push you in because you have more responsibilities. I don't know when I became the adult or the parent in the family and started taking care of people, but it became so natural, and I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it, as I think a lot of us. I think we're living in the most interesting times, as you put it. We're living in a time. So I would like to believe there was a phase from 65 to 85. It was about black consciousness movement. Afros were in. Blacks were being cultural. We had a purpose. We had a clear direction. But we missed the buck in terms of actioning that and growing that as lessons to our kids, to us per se, right? We're going through that again, and we have Bantu bengoma, sangomas, and.
Do you think that's a form of black consciousness?
No, never.
Okay.
Never. It doesn't make sense.
No, when you're saying we're going through it again, that's what I'm asking.
It's one of the people are waking up, and because people are waking up, they're vulnerable. They don't even know they left and they. Some people don't even know their bloodline. They don't know who they are. They don't know where they come from, rather, and. The lack there of knowing enables other people to tell them what their stories are. I asked somebody a while back, I said, I don't understand. Ke Botswana. My dad ke Botswana. Yeah, we have further up east bloodlines, but how do I go to a person and a person says, Vumani boy, and I'm like, Siyavuma. How does my ancestors know Zulu? Right? And secondly, Nyevumani. Have you ever asked that question? Right? Uvumani. It's a very deep question. People are agreeing and signing contracts with things they don't know and energies they don't understand. There are energies in this world. Let me give you a classic example. Basic. Weed. If we smoke weed in this room, right, and there's 4 or 5 of us, and there's one person that doesn't like one person, right, another person, we're going to have a trip. That person's highness is going to create paranoia. Energy gets disturbed because they're not aligned. But if you smoke weed with your partner and you're aligned, it pulls you to each other.
Are you promoting weed? What's going on here?
Not promoting weed. I do smoke. Don't get me wrong. I'm not apologetic about it. But I'm saying there are things that enables us to understand ourselves better, that ground us.
Yeah.
That we are told, this is wrong. Jamaica's got a lowest rate of depression. It's weed.
But it's got a high crime though.
Because there's no jobs. It's not weed.
Yeah, I'm a weed smoker with the excuses.
I've never seen a person that smoked weed commit a violent crime. And I've never heard a person got involved in an accident because of weed. But that's a topic for another day.
No, I hear what you're saying. Especially in this country where we allow alcohol ads, but we don't allow, like, let's say, smoking ads, whatever they may be. And look, shout out to Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma for the work she did there, because cigarettes are not good for you. But when you look at accidents and crime and violence and all the atrocities, a lot of them are linked to alcohol. But things like smoking weed, even smoking a cigarette, which is not good for you, are not as aggressive. And yet they're the ones that are shafted to the side.
But that's the kind of world we live in. The narrator will always decide what is the story.
Yeah.
And I always say, I am responsible for my story so that my bloodline doesn't pay for it. I cannot afford to sit idly and accept this nonsense, the status quo. It's not acceptable to me. It's not acceptable for somebody that has never had the pleasure of spending 5 minutes with me to dictate what I am and what I'm capable of. And I preach that, and I try and be that example to my kids, because I think the world is so quick to tell us what we are, and we don't tell them who we are. When you know who you are, you deal better with the world. I love Nigerians. I respect them for two things. Your average Nigerian knows his tagazelo zake. Average, right? Firstly.
Clan names.
Yeah. Secondly, and knows who he is.
Yeah.
And the only reason most Nigerians use names like Prince, and it's because their indigenous names are very difficult.
And they have a lot of names. A lot of names.
But they have those, right? That's them. Have you seen how Nigerians walk? When they walk into a room, I've never met a Nigerian that slouches. Go to any kasi in South Africa. 9 out of 10, they're slouching. It's those fundamentals. I come from a family where my grandfather would hit me on the back and say, a man doesn't walk like that. That's how you walk in a room and how you walk out of a room. Doesn't matter what they think of you. You got to walk in a man, walk out a man. And I believe in that. I'm old school like that. I think South Africa is the most beautiful place if you've traveled, but it's so fundamentally fucked up. It is inherently fucked up. It is, we don't find anything wrong that people that have oppressed us for generations tell us, you've had 30 years, get over it. And we're supposed to get over it. We are reminded that we didn't build anything, but it's our labor that did the work, right? When you go on Google right now, you look for the greatest wall ever built, it will say the Wall of China. But when you Google the wall of Benin, it's bigger, better than the Wall of China. But we're still not fixing it on Google. And you ask yourself, why is it that something is wrong with the wall in Benin, but there's nothing wrong with the wall in China? And that's where the hate starts, because we accept everything we are told without questioning things. We are poison unto ourselves of lately. It is not them, it's not white people, it's not the system that's selling us a phallus. It is ourselves. Fundamentally, your average, I cannot be okay having food when the next person doesn't have. I'm not built that way. But you get people, they get good money, they rent up houses, they live, or they wear things that when you walk in a room, you see money. But they're empty. Their mothers don't live that life. They're not uplifting family, and they complain when our family members stay that way. And they forget White people were pulling each other out. The Jews were pulling each other out. The Indians are pulling each other out. They're working together. We're the only people that invite each other to parties and never invite each other to tables where there's money. Black people are. You know, you can say to your friends, I want to start a business, I need 500 Rand. The guy will say no. An hour later, he'll say, let's go get drunk. And they go drink that 500 Rand.
That is correct.
You know, and we're accepting it, you know, and maybe we need to start saying, I don't want to hang with people like that. Because I think we are so used to being told we are victims, we play victims. You know, and I'm at a space where I'm building a network, an infrastructure quietly that enables me to change one place. And by changing that place, I would like to believe it will ignite a few people, let alone my children, to be better people and have a stepping stone. Firstly. Secondly, I will not play victim. I will not be victimized. I will not be bullied. I've realized I'm in a space where I'm realizing, so the rules to the system apply. They know how to use them to suit them. That's corporate South Africa largely. We need to learn to understand how we use those same things against them. And I've been doing that of lately. I find myself smiling more often because you beat them at their own game, and you become a mirage, for lack of a better word. They're not sure how do we deal, and because of the tattoos, the earrings, you're labeled, and I'm okay with that. I think I stopped worrying when I realized I'm going to be a father. Stop worrying about people's opinions. I mean, everybody farts, it smells for a bit and moves on. I worry about things. We worry, black people worry about silly things. You know, I respect a person that comes out of a shack, bathed, and goes and gets theirs, right? But we look down on those people. Some of us look down on those people. Look at them, ooh, wasokola. But that person is earning it, right? We live in a society where, this is a difficult one. Women are entitled to, women say 50-50, but you must pay for the bill. You're like,
and you must lobola her as well.
You're like, yeah, and you're like, I see you, and you know, people are entitled to what's yours. You know, so you learn to be creative. You learn to deal. You know, and culture also. I think culture is the biggest trap. We have beautiful cultures as Africans, but it is sad when cultures are abused to suit a narrative of extortion, abusing, and taking of other people. You know, we are not, you must remember, any book that's available will tell you we are highly cultural people. You know, we are very civilized as people. That's where Africans had things like kangaroo courts to decipher and deal with issues. We always had structure and process.
Kangaroo tribal?
Yeah.
Not kangaroo.
Kangaroo courts, like the courts.
You're calling them kangaroo?
They are, to a degree. They call that way. They're not.
I think the term kangaroo is a bit... It's meant to be derogatory. That's why I'm asking.
And I'm using it intentionally. I'm using it intentionally. We need to use these words because we're scared to speak about them. But our systems worked. Haven't you picked up when you walk into Soweto, drive into Soweto, the Soweto people know who's who in the zoo. Only outsiders don't know. You can't honk at certain people. You know, you can't behave a certain thing in certain places. You must know your place, right? And that's a system on its own, right? That is systems we've had. We have, from the 15th generations, we've had systems and processes. Europeans only started learning at the 17th, 18th generation. That's why they want to speak about 15 or before, about civility and so forth. That's why we are finding things up like Botswana, Mapumbu, and so forth. But we don't speak about them. We're like, oh, that's a fine. And then we move on and we celebrate the person that found them, not what they found and what comes with it.
Oh, found. Jacob Zuma. You didn't discover South Africa, you stumbled across. Watch the words that you use. You didn't discover anything. There were already people living there. There were already people creating.
Nothing is new under the sun. Nothing. I mean, Africans knew things and did things before people came. We gave them medicine. We gave them our own technology. The concept of a fridge is something the Bushmen have been using for years. By putting water in the sand, creating a mudslide, and patting things with mud. But because when what we do and what they do is different, right? When you do it, and please indulge me, I'm going to use the term loosely, us and them. It's very important. I think when you say whites and blacks, you're racial. But we all know in South Africa there's us and them. That's why we don't walk in certain places the same conviction, like in certain areas, right? I stay in Pretoria. For years, I had neighbors call the cops on me to check what is it that this young boy does for a living.
Why?
You know?
Why would they do that?
I think it's at the age moving into a certain suburb, living a certain life. I've even had instances where a white guy, when I was in high school, asked me if my mom won the lotto to live where she is. And I'm like, how painful, you know? And we learn to smile it off and keep quiet and carry on. And these things pile, you know? My daughter's 7 years old and she already understands they're white, we are black. But I've never taught her that. So you wonder, where tolapi, right? Somewhere, people are telling her what she is. So I have a responsibility to tell her and teach her so that they don't distort what she is. You know, we're coining stupid terms, and I call them stupid because we don't understand the significance of those terms. You wear your crown, queen. A slave queen, wear your crown. You're showing us your ass the whole day and we're saying, wear your crown. What crown? You're not showing us that crown, you're showing us your booty. You're selling. Right? And they're doing that because if they take a decent picture of themselves, they'll not get likes. So we distracted. People like the likes. They like the shortcut. They don't want the hard work, right? And I would like to leave the table, or whenever the good Lord says I must go, I would love to be comfortable enough to know that I've paid for all the sins, if there are any, or created enough of a foundation for my family, for my kids.
Paid all the sins? I don't
You
like
can,
what
generational curses, call them generational curses. We do have those.
You want to pay for them?
For my family,
You want
definitely.
to put that on yourself?
For my family. Somebody's got to do it. Hey? Okay. Somebody's got to do it. If you don't do it, listen, if you don't do it, Pen, your kids are going to suffer from it. But, you know, you probably are suffering the same traumas that your father suffered, right? For him not having certain ways or relationships with his father. We are just perpetuating this. We're not stopping it. We need to start dealing with the healing. Can't be sick forever. We've been sick for many years. Let's deal. So I at some point in my life, I went to a spiritual journey and I had to decide, after seeing certain things, I had to decide whether I'm taking this responsibility, I'm accepting it rather, or I do me and I live opulently and that's all I am, or I become the foundation my kids build on. You know, because I think, excuse me, my kids are fortunate that I work hard. They're not privileged. The goal is to create that my grandchildren have a privilege of us having sustainable wealth. And the trap is also, I don't want to be rich. I want to be wealthy. And for years I wanted money. I went from one project to the other, one business to the other. And when my daughter was born, I realized I was probably the richest man and I didn't know. I have a family that loves me. I have a mom that loves me unconditionally. I have a daughter that looks at me like I'm God. When I walk in, doesn't matter what happens. It's a good day. You know, they can shove me out there. When I walk home, I am God. And I think we don't celebrate those, you know, and that also reminds you that you choose. If these people look up to you that way, are you going to be that parent they ask you, but where's anyway? Now, when people were making money or people were changing the world, what were you doing? And I'm realizing as well, most importantly, silence can never echo in a room where idiots are speaking. You know, it's the same thing as we're dealing with people. I'll use this analogy. We're dealing with people that have cars, right? They were bought cars that want to speak in a room of people that own their own bicycles. I own my own bicycle, right? Don't you find it weird we have ministers of business, IT, agriculture that don't even understand what that is? So it's the same thing as I don't like motivational speakers. I despise them. I think they're thieves, they're cheats. Because technically you're their business. If you don't go to them, who do they sell to? So are they business people? Or they're temporary high. They're like a drug. It's a temporary high. You're high now. You leave. You're excited.
I like defending motivational speakers, but I'll let you speak.
Kudos to you, man.
I coke out again. Hey, ngatoli chance. Hey, yakhuluma le body. I should have preempted that you are gonna be on a roll. I'm gonna try and summarize for you, and I'm gonna try and shut you down, and then I'm gonna let you speak. If you can give a shout out to the schools you went to, if you remember them, and then where you went to for tertiary.
I don't want to.
Okay.
They don't deserve it. I mean,
that's important to say, by the way.
My mom realized that for first year, I only attended 19 classes.
In first year?
Yeah, I just didn't feel the need to be there. Okay. I didn't feel like they're teaching me anything. The streets were doing better.
They don't deserve shout outs. I appreciate that.
They don't. I think the system is messed up, right? We went through a phase where graduates were being celebrated, and after they graduate, they stay at home.
Correct.
And families throw parties.
It's not a phase. We're in it now. Yeah.
No, the first phase, I'm going to explain why I'm saying phase, where your parents will spend a lot of money to celebrate you graduating, you having an outfit. And Monday, you don't even have money for a CV. Why not give you the money to start off something, right? We're now in a phase where we are woke. People dress traditional attires for their graduation. Same thing happens, right? What are you celebrating? The system is fixed. It's rigged. The system is taking more people than we could provide the market. And it's acceptable?
Commodifying education is what or EFF and other kids call it SASCO, I think.
They don't, hey? They don't.
I wanted to ask if you're comfortable to share. You spoke about your mother. You never spoke about your father. And then you briefly mentioned your grandfather as well. I don't know if you'd like to mention them and their impact in your life.
Biggest lesson my father ever taught me is how not to be a man. Simple as that. I don't want to go into it. I think it's something that it will be had when time allows it, between only me and him.
Yeah.
Out of respect for him.
You still have access to him?
Yeah, I do. I understand where he's coming from, genuinely.
Yeah.
I'm blessed in a sense that I had so many mothers. I had aunts around me. And I think maybe that's why I understand women's role in society. And maybe that's why when women don't know their value or their contribution towards society, it aches my soul. So the women in my family, I come from a very matriarchal family.
Is that normal for Botswana? Or you don't know?
It is. I think generally Botswana people have always respected basadi. We understand mosadi ke. You know what I mean? We in a home that has, that's why there's a statement, mosadi charati bakabachaling. A woman holds a knife on the sharp end, meaning a woman is supposed to be the calm in the storm and the chaos that the man deals with out there. That's why maybe our grandparents understood that our grandfathers need to go work and they would take care of home.
Yeah.
Right? I had aunts. There was a lady called the Kaders family, in Muslim family. Grew up with them. They were kind of a place I go away to my sanity, yakasi type of thing, you know. Shout out to them. I think
Indian Muslim family.
Yeah.
More important than school.
Shout out to people like that. I think watching them and how they dealt as a family then taught me a lot.
Yeah.
And it showed me a gentler way of doing things and the alternative. And I watched how active the father was, and I was like, this is interesting. And I watched how they dealt as a household, the complexities of that. And I loved that.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, okay. And I learned that from them. I had aunts. You're the woman in my family. They're strong, man. I think they're strong, and I think I love that in a woman, a strong woman.
Was it beautiful, strong, or strong because of circumstance? And number one.
Oh, physically they're beautiful, but I'm saying they're strong because of circumstances and the fact that I don't think we come from people, my family personally, we come from people that play victims. We don't like that. You get it done, you do it, no excuses. And
my question is, it's not a trauma reaction. It's not something that needs to be fixed. We still want to have strong women, or do we want to have women that don't have to be strong?
We need strong women.
Okay.
We do. We need strong women. But strength, what is strength? Maybe that's the question, because some people being strong as you open your hand and say, I want, or you speaking down to me, not speaking life to me, you breaking me, or you going to earn your own keep. That does not necessarily make you strong, right? When I mean strong in terms of grounding society. Our society has lost its grounds. We are shaking and nobody's doing anything. The men, you'd realize, if you understand numbers or numerology, you'd understand that we in the year 2, we've only had 1. Been from 1, now in 2, in the feminine energy.
Numerology is not a form of Togoza Koko.
No, not really. It's a science. It's more of a direct science. Let me give you a basic example. The richest business, if you Google the richest businesses like Porsche, Ferrari, I would say Rolex as well, you'd find out that they reached that on the 28th. What are the odds? Steve Jobs, before he started Apple, he went to India to learn what? Numbers. Why is that certain numbers? You'd see, I'll give you a prediction, and I'm willing to donate to any of your charities if I have the money, that we're in an energy of money. Everybody's speaking money. Last year, everybody was speaking spirituality because we're in an energy of spirituality, right? Right now, we're in a money energy. It's a karma, though. People only focus on the money because it's an 8th. We're in the 8th energy, right? But 8 also represents karma. What goes around comes around. And then you go to the richest people, speaking about numerology. 22 of the richest people in the world have a number 28 in their energy. Odds? Coincidence? Maybe, maybe not. Rolex, you go to any Rolex ad right now and check the date on the watch, they'll say 28th. Why that number? When you were growing up, most stores, the numbers were 1999. That was before the year 2000. In the year 2000, it's 888 in every numbers. Right?
You're knocking me.
Systems, there's a cheat code to this. And the more and more I started understanding that, the more and more I started, like, I don't have meetings on certain dates. I don't want to be engaged on certain dates. Because me and those energies just don't, everything is energy. I mean, you're attracted to your partner because your energy.
What's the date today? 12. So 12 is a good number.
Communication number. 1 + 2 is 3.
Come on.
Communication.
So you can also add numbers.
It's how you add the numbers. Every number, you could tell a person's life or character about their numbers when they're born. It's that simple. And it helps if you have an insight, which I would.
Insight, third eye. What's an insight? What did you touch here?
I don't think it's a third eye. I think our energies, and we are old souls, remembers things a certain way, right? And you know certain things. I mean, I think we all been in a situation where there's a song that plays in your head and somebody plays it, or you're thinking about somebody and somebody calls you, right? If you understand, there's a thing called the 1,000 monkey theory. Well, the 1,000 monkey theory was monkeys were stuck on an island and monkeys were in mainland. They couldn't eat nuts, all of them. And one day, one monkey took a stone and started hitting in the nut. And he realized he could eat, and he ate, and he kept on doing it. And they kept on watching him, the monkeys on the island. They started doing what that monkey did. On mainland, monkeys started doing it simultaneously as well. Why is that? Why is that? Look at where we are right now. The world is awakening up to the political lies that we are fed, that there are people that are playing a certain story. They're pushing a certain agenda. Because of the internet, platforms like these, we are having these discussions. Information is more readily. And we're at a point where you can't manage it anymore because you can't keep it all platforms. But if you take it 20, 30 years back, it was newspapers, it was TV. You're only hearing a story from one side. Because of that, we're imploding. We're getting so much knowledge, so much information rather. And that information is dangerous because depending on interpretation, we could be in trouble. We could be, because don't forget, if these guys, if the people that are in power about business, their businesses control you, and they will do whatever it needs to happen for that to happen. You can't be controlled. You can be controlled when you're alone. You can't be controlled when we're many. That's why what's happening, I don't want to share my view, the Israel-Palestine situation. I mean, that thing that's been going on for years.
Yeah.
Why now? Because of the platforms. Can't be ignored because of the platforms. And people are taking, which is something I was saying, I think even the first time we met, I said African democracy needs to evolve to speak for an African story. Because the current status quo of democracy does not allow me to vote and have a voice. And you can't say by putting an X, that's my only voice. You know, we need a government that takes accountability, that signs a year plan with us, saying, I will do this in the year. When you fail, move on. Let's get another person in. Until we get sustainable people, until people get to the table and they appreciate you and I. And if we do that, honestly, maybe Msholozi will retire. Maybe Cyril will leave us. Maybe we will not have us and them. You know, we will start dealing from an honest point of view, because the us and them is the distraction.
You never spoke about your grandfather, and I wanted to ask, your grandmother had a bottle store, or she sold alcohol, sorry. And you said you started hustling then. Was it because of need? Do you guys need to hustle? Do you need to sell ice blocks and those things? And where was your grandfather?
Well, my grandfather worked, and I think people always need more. She was doing it because she was keeping busy and she was bringing in money.
Okay. Your grandmother worked?
No, that's what she did.
Oh, she was in business.
Yeah,
Your grandfather worked.
I think for her to teach, I think it was firstly she needed the support, she needed help, right? But I would also like to think she had so many grandchildren, she could have picked any of them. She chose me, and I still don't understand the why. Sometimes I find myself smiling. I'm like, you clearly knew something.
Yeah.
You know, but she's once said to me, you will understand what responsibility is when it's time, and you'll take your responsibility seriously. If you had told me this, then I would have never dealt with family the way I deal. I deal with family the way I deal because of how she dealt with me.
Sure.
Right? And I understand I exist because of this ecosystem of family.
Yeah.
Right? And she became actually, so I had 4 grandmothers. My biological grandmother and I missed each other. When I was born, she passed. So her sisters took me in. Her sisters raised me.
By biological, you mean your mother's mother?
My mother's mother, yeah.
Okay.
So her siblings raised me,
Okay.
right? One wasn't working. One was a stay-at-home but took care of home, which is the first home we have when we jumped the border into South Africa. One was a principal, right? One was a principal, the other one was a businesswoman. The one, my biological grandmother, when she passed on, you understand, in township there are these stores, you know, these blocker stores that she just signed an agreement to buy that, right? That's my mom's mom. She was a matron, she was a nurse by profession, but she had bought that and she passed on, and nobody pursued it, right? So that's a story for another day. But these women, this woman, the one that ran away and went to Botswana, I call her Shaka Zulu for a reason. I think she's the strongest woman that has ever lived. She's an amazing soul. She became a glue to about 8-9 families. I mean, she's the kind of person that would drive in the middle of the night to go sort out an issue and go back home. And comfortably, after sorting out the issue, says, hey, what are we having for dinner? Where am I sleeping? And then tomorrow she would leave. She was that kind of person. And she's older right now, right? She's older, but she's parted a lot of things in me. She and my aunt, who's I refer to as my mom, revived my faith in human beings. I hated human beings at some point, because the more I realized how unfair the system is, the more I was angry. I was an angry child. Like, I was very angry at the system. And it took me dealing with me to say, okay, I'm dealing with me. After dealing with me, I'm dealing with the system my way. And I'm not going to change it. That's the reality. but I can change the system in which I deal in. And that's the most important thing. We worry about changing the broader system, right? Think about it. If political parties each say, in an ideal world, let Western Cape stay with the DA, colored folks are waking up to seeing the reality. I'm just making an example. Let Limpopo be ANC. Let them mess it up if they do. And let people account. People don't account because they always find somebody to blame. And I think as normal citizens, we are okay with accepting nonsense. I say it actually. We're okay with that. We're okay with somebody saying, I will do this, and when they don't do that, we can't hold them accountable. Right? And have you realized how systematically certain words are not being used anymore? When I was growing up, I knew anybody that worked for government to be a public servant. Right now they're politicians.
Yeah.
Because the term public servant reminds them of what they are in the scheme of things. And they don't want to deal with that. Right? They don't want to deal with that. I call them public servants every time I deal with them. They don't like it. I'm like, okay, whatever. We're speaking to the public servants.
Yeah.
And you need to remind people. We've been done favors. And we are groupie generation, which is a bit sad. I mean,
groupies of leaders.
Yeah, I think we enable that. We are people worshiper because we're scared of taking accountability ourselves. So if you support Jacob Zuma Monday and Tuesday you support Cyril, Wednesday you blame Zuma for what he did, Friday you blame Cyril for what we did. And we can just keep the ball moving. And to a large degree, that's dangerous.
You're saying it's easier to be a groupie than to be accountable for self? Or we do it because it's easier.
It's an easier way. I mean, it's an easier way. You'd find people say, I didn't finish school because I didn't have. Most of us didn't. Or I didn't do this because the reasons. If I tell you some of the things I had to do to get to where I am, slept in my car for months. I used to go bath at gym, without telling a person. I'd bath and I'd get things done. Right? And people assume that everything I have, somebody gave me.
Yeah.
That's their business. I don't care about that. I used to be bothered by that at some stage in my life. Right now, I'm bothered by the souls that I'm responsible for, because I need to look them in the eye and say, today it was a hard day, but tomorrow we marshal on. We got something. I need to enable them. It's not a need, it's a have. I have to be the kind of father that raises my daughter so selflessly that she knows her value at a young age, so that no man is going to lie to her. Right? And I always say to people, the guy that's going to date my daughter, I'm going to shake his hand because I know what I'm raising.
Raising Mushaga.
No, I'm raising a strong, opinionated individual that will understand that she needs to center herself in her femininity. If we all understood what our places and our roles are, don't you think it'd be a better world? But because we don't, some people don't know their place, right? You want a business that's in Europe telling us what we should be eating in our townships. We are comfortable in supporting everybody but our own. The Jews support each other, the Chinese support each other, the Indians support each other. I'm missing one group of people.
Yeah.
Us. Who do we support?
Did your grandfather have an influence on your life? Number one. And number two, you spoke about having many mothers in your life. Did you have fathers? You seem to be very focused on feminine energy. The way you speak about women, your mom, the way you speak about your daughter.
I have father figures. I think my grandfather played his part, right? But he couldn't play it effectively because there are things he was not skilled with. Because most of us have that. That's that bridge between you and your grandparents. From an generational point of view, you can't necessarily relate. I had people like the current Premier of Free State, Nkosi Dukwan. He revived my faith in politics. I think his outlook in the world is very interesting. He's not a loud character. People like him. I had uncles. My uncle was the CEO of Denel. He was the acting CEO of Denel. He's Denel Aviation right now. He went back to that. For a man like that to say, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to stay here. I don't want to stand there. You look at that and
you come from an influential family?
What is influence?
It means they had an impact in terms of business or politics, whether currently or in the past.
If they had an impact, I'd be a billionaire.
You believe so? There's a lot of children, I'm not going to mention a surname. There's a lot of children whose parents and grandparents were very influential and they're not billionaires.
That's their stupidity. It's got nothing to do with me. I know if I had lean way, being the animal that I am, if I build a loaf, if I created a loaf of bread from nothing, right? Imagine if I had the ingredients, I'd probably feed a few people.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So I look at the world that way. I think people like shortcuts. I don't like shortcuts. I like practicality. I want to be practical in everything I do. You know, I don't believe in, I'm the kind of guy, I'd start something, let it run for a few years.
Sure.
Then I'll consider speaking about it. It has to work first. Yeah. If it doesn't work, what are you going on about? You know, and I am where I am because of the political landscape of this country, right?
What does that mean?
Certain doors wouldn't be open for me if there wasn't a black government. We can stand here and argue about that. That's the reality. But I'm realizing that people can get you to the door. Sometimes you got to squeeze through the keyhole to get in. And once you get in, you got to choose whether you stay in. And I'm the kind of character, I wanted to see the hole in the keyhole, and I said, I'll get in. Either way, I'll get in. And I always do. Hey? Failure is not an option. I can't afford to fail, man. I'm going to build this business. I'm going to be the biggest food manufacturer before I die. It's a matter of time. It's semantics.
The biggest food manufacturer in South Africa?
For now, yeah. Africa at some point, yeah. Sure. Definitely. Why not? I run the most optimum machinery of production currently.
In the country?
My stats speak of that. I mean, obviously there are politics behind it, but having a business, listen, your average business that I deal with has a 29% wastage, including the company I'm speaking, the company I do work for, 29%. Mine is 3%.
The company you work for? Or you mean that you in partnership with?
Yeah, the company I manufacture for or pack for. I do work for them. So I'm saying
3%.
My wastage is 3%.
Compared to 29.
29 is 30. The smallest. That's 29 is in-house for them. And 49 is third parties. Yet you take my business away. You know why? I raised my hand and I said, I think they're stealing from you. I can tell you how they do it. And then people said, let's audit this quickly. We audited. And they said, no, let's audit. We'll share the audio. We'll share the audit report rather. And you realize, you're being primed here. You're being set up. And we started keeping documentation, keeping proof of that. Right? And then you meet with the leadership. The CEO says, no contract will be terminated on audio in a formal meeting. You had legal say, no contract will be terminated. And they terminate. They make you move and put down a cost of over 39 million to set up an infrastructure, enable the value chain. And it's not your money. It's not my money. The money belongs to a trust, not mine. Right? We set up, we get everything ready. And my people say, we are ready. We need to put up a sign. I'm like, let's wait. And I get coerced into accepting that we put up a sign. We put up a sign on the highway. Whoa, the landscape changed. Right? You're not being dealt with the same. You're being bullied. Right? And I go back to them like, but this person, here's proof. Here's an audio recording. Right? And here's proof. I went into this person's information and I found this. He's got a contract. I don't have a signed version, but here's a copy of the paper trail that him and that person in your institution are doing something sinister together. And this is a business that's losing millions, probably over 40, 50 million at a go, right? We'll investigate. The auditing team comes through. When they come through, and I lost my shit, and God forgive me for that. When my people were being told, don't speak about this, speak about that. Right? And I'm like, okay. And then you get a letter, contract has been terminated. Why? No, we're bringing business in-house. But accidentally, they send me an email showing me where they're taking my business to a business that cost them 49% wastage. So the system technically works when you toe a lane. When you become the light in the room for other people to see, they want to dim that light. And they villainified you, right? They even went as far as and they wrote in their court papers that I'm one of the most dangerous people in the country.
One of the most dangerous people in the country.
That's what they say. Yeah, I'm dangerous, man.
We're jumping in. I'm worried about people that are going to be listening. Someone.
So because the Coke is down, should we get the coffee? Coke, what do we get?
Coke, please.
More Coke.
Coffee. Oh,
Coffee.
Yeah, I need to slow down.
Caffeine.
One or two?
Just one, Charlie. I'm all right.
Sorry.
Must we wait?
We can.
Can we hit? Hit.
Yes,
That sounds so wrong.
Sorry to step, I just saw that.
No, thank you, sir. Thank you.
That sounds so wrong. Can we hit?
I wanna.
Yeah.
You know what happens sometimes is guests come here and I sometimes don't know whether to invite people I know or invite people I don't know. Because if it's people I don't know, when I ask questions, I genuinely won't know. When it's people I know, I'm like, should I ask?
Ask.
I already know.
Ask.
So I always have that. Like, for example, what you're speaking about now, for someone that's listening, they might be like, oh, or they might be like, I don't know what this guy is talking about. I know Penn is not asking.
Okay.
And it's because I'm like, well, I kind of know. I want to go back to, we're going to come back to food manufacturing.
Sure.
Because, yeah, that's important. At that 39 million, that belongs to a trust and companies you work for and sabotage. You spoke about struggling at tertiary. Did you drop out? What's your journey from tertiary to where you are now, wanting to build in the shortest way possible?
So I graduated. I was supposed to graduate. I didn't go collect it. I didn't feel the need to.
So you did finish your qualification?
Yeah, I didn't
okay,
feel
but
the
you
need
didn't go to the graduation ceremony.
Only that.
We heard you demonizing graduation ceremonies. You can't enjoy nice things now.
No, not really.
No, I'm kidding.
We both differently. I don't want to go graduate because I was fearful of a number of things. I think it would put pressure on my mom to bend when she couldn't at the time. Number one. Number two.
To do what?
To bend, like make it happen, make me have an outfit to go graduate and do all these things. There was a pressure at the time.
Okay.
And I had sisters, that needed to go to school as well. So I just I saw it as a problem to me.
I hear you.
It was a solution partly because it taught me how systems work, but it was a problem because going to collect it, we get caught up in this document. And that very same document, you don't even get paid equivalent to the value of that document. Yeah. So
I need to stop here and just emphasize something you raised earlier that people need to understand. And this is a message not just to black people, but to many poor families. I understand the concept of validation when you felt like a nothing your whole life. We celebrate the concept of, I'm the first child in my family to ever go to university, so it's a big deal. My whole family wants to celebrate. It's a validation for us to be like, we are capable. I understand. But outside of that, outside of the validation, which we do understand, we're also saying in that same breath, if you can, apply your mind and be like, look, if you have the ability to raise 20,000, 50,000 rand to get people to travel to an obscure city somewhere to go and celebrate and get suits, nice dresses, and hire out a venue and get decor and celebrate. It's a beautiful thing. And I understand. It's that whole thing of wearing clothes to look rich. It's because you've always felt poor. You want people to know I'm not poor anymore. But consider the thought of we can raise 50,000 as a family to celebrate your achievement. But we cannot raise 50,000 for you to start a business or to do something. And we need to reprioritize, whether it's graduations. Graduations is a good example now. We speak normally about funerals and weddings as well. It's for people that have always felt worthless, where when they find a chance, they try to show the world we are worthy, but it's in the wrong way. And we need to liberate ourselves out of that mindset, not just as black people, but I said all poor people or people that feel a need for validation.
Is it, sorry to come in there, is it that we feel worthless, or it's moving with the Jones? Because I think
who are the Jones in this sense?
the
Because
pressure,
I can
pressure,
tell you now.
the neighborhood pressure. I mean,
Which neighborhood?
People,
black neighborhood?
wherever people live, it's community pressure. We have this unnecessary. There are people. There's been training for the week that somebody just for attention pretended amalobolake, and somebody went to get a car from Porsche. They don't own this car. Yeah, kumbaya. All I'm saying
was it Porsche? What car was that? I know who you're speaking about.
Yeah, but all I'm saying is that
we're not gonna drop files.
But all I'm saying is that for the mere fact that people feel the need, right, and it's a have to now.
Yeah.
It tells you what pressures are available.
Yeah.
Right. We need to normalize saying, I'm not okay today. I don't have today. I learned that at a young age, that when at home they said we don't have, or you're not getting, you understood there was a reason for that, and you respected that. And I look at my daughter, we used to have a tiffle when I say we don't have, there isn't. Today you say there isn't, Bua, and she takes a step and she's like, okay, Daddy, we move on.
Sure.
Maybe it's that simple. Maybe, and I hear we didn't have. We still don't have a lot of things. We don't have. What do we have?
Can I defend those people?
Which people?
The people that have the big parties. So I want to say this. Look, I won't mention her name, but there's a very big lady on social media, on Instagram in particular, who has been accused, because I don't know if it's been confirmed, of manufacturing some type of lobolo ceremony for a bogus marriage or wedding, which we don't know if it really happened. And then there was a picture of her receiving a vehicle somewhere. It trended, etc. And yes, it does put pressure on people. The reason I stopped and I asked who are the Joneses is because if the argument is going to be like black people have always felt less than, my question is, if you're having this huge graduation party, white people don't have that. They don't have huge weddings. And so you can't say you're trying to be like them. That's why when you said neighborhood, I was like, okay, I kind of get it.
Why do you think they don't have them?
So this is where I get to defend people that flash.
I want to hear this.
I use myself as an example. I used to judge black guys. Black guys? Let me just say guys. I used to judge guys who mac using a car, using clothes, taking clothes to fancy places. Because I was like, I'm never going to fucking pay whatever. What? Are you crazy? I used to look down on them because I was like, this guy doesn't have game. Because that's what it is. Like, if you don't have game, you'll use material, flash, etc. It would take me many years to realize it's not sadness. It's sadness from my point, but it's just how we're different. To realize that we're not the same. And the reason that guy has to dress up, the reason he has to come with a car, is because unfortunately that may be all he has. And the reason I look down on them is because I'm arrogant, because I'm like, but my brain and my mouth can get the same girl, because that's what I have. So I don't need to dress up in a suit. I don't need to come in a fancy car. So the reason you were raised and you could understand when you're told we can't have today, it's because you had the ability to navigate through that. And most people are never really trained in that way to get it.
Whose fault is it?
It's everyone's fault. It's everyone who is aware and can articulate, it's their fault.
I refuse. It's the parents' fault.
Parents don't know better.
I hear you.
Sure.
I said, so 2-3 years back, we went to Neisner with the family. And I said to my mom, I think it was the first time I told her that I smoke weed, and I've been smoking
2 years ago.
2-3 years ago back.
Jeez.
Yeah. That should tell you how secretive I am. So we were having this chat, and I was like, I am overwhelmed. I need to husa. Right? And she's like, what do you mean? I'm like, I want to smoke. She says,
need to burn some incense.
She's like, you smoke? She's thinking cigarette. I'm like, no, weed. But my point to you is, we had a conversation, me and her. And I remind her every chance I can how amazing she is, because for her to walk away from a marriage that could have given her everything to rebuild with us, let alone to raise a grown-ass man, that humbles me, and unconditionally. When I'm wrong, she will deal with me accordingly. She's got me arrested before for my wrongs and bailed me out. Yeah, she did.
Your mom's had you arrested?
Yeah,
how old
did.
were you? You don't have to tell the story.
Early 20s. I'm not sure. Early 20s.
Please continue.
Yeah, she got me arrested, but I started understanding the why. I think you're right when you say parents know lesser or they don't know any better. But the responsibility starts at home.
Correct.
If at home we nudge from a good intention, these things come natural. But if the foundation is not set, like parents that expect teachers to discipline their kids when they fail at home, parents that abdicate parenting for letting malls parent, PlayStation parent, the phone parent, but other than them and the helper, we need to take ownership.
That's not fair.
It is fair. Hear me out. So I don't want to talk about my dynamics, but I live in a house where it's myself, my daughter, and my nephew only. My son used to stay with me. He doesn't stay with me. And my daughter's 7, for the record. I raise her. I don't have help. I don't have a domestic. We cook, we clean, we do it ourselves. And it's a lesson of collective. It's also, I'm conditioning people to understand that if we do it here, we're going to do it at work as well. You can go get an education, but you must understand you owe me hours. I'm not building this so that somebody takes it off my hand. You need to come to the party.
Yeah.
This is for you. Have an understanding. If we teach and we train that way, we are dealing from a genuine point of view. I'm honest enough to say there are topics I'm not willing to have with my daughter because of her age right now. When she's old enough, I will do that. But I can't blame her mother for not being around. That can't be an excuse. You can't say, if I go out, like let's say I go out and she's dressed up. It used to irk my soul when people used to say, oh, her mother dressed her so nice. I'd be like,
getting jealous.
I'd be like,
oh, that's me, boy.
Yeah, I'm like,
those are my skills.
But with time, I'm realizing that I don't have to do that.
You really don't.
I know what I'm doing, right? And that's an affirmation in terms of what I'm doing for this person, right? And I love the fact that we're at a phase where she wants to help out, tidy up. You know, she has the lazy days, but the normal day, she wants to help out. She wants to tidy up. She wants to do this, that, or the other. I love that, right? And I would love to be in a position, God willing, where I enable these kids, when they stand on a stage, they don't do it for me. They do it because they enjoy where they are and they understand. They have an understanding of where we are. I think that's where we go wrong. We get stuck in the limelight. The lights are dragging us. We're like, yo, people know me. What is the point? People know you when you don't have 5 cents to rub together, right? I don't care about that. You see, I'm the kind of character I could go to a mall with pajamas. I don't care what people think about me. I go meet people like this. This is me. My value is here and here, and I have the same temperament as you in terms of call me arrogant, call me confident. It doesn't really matter to me. I know where I stand. The bottom line is you can't ignore me. You can't judge me like the next man because we're different animals. I'm a beast at what I do. I'm built for this. You know, the understanding of I'm built to be where I am. Listen, I'm good at this. I pray to God I never get to disappoint me in failing in something. We've built a number of businesses, and my fear on this journey is I always had partners, older people as my partners, because they would be like, keep me in check, because I know I've got a bit of a loose screw here and there, right? But I realized they're holding me back. They were holding me back, and it was them taking of me as opposed to the other way around, right? When you start to understand that, and you understand that, okay, I want to change this. If I believe this glass needs a handle, I can't trust the next man with it. I'm going to trust myself with it. I'm going to put a handle on this glass. I'm going to give it to my kids first. I don't get involved in anything I can't stand behind. You know, one of the main reasons I believed in you, I believe that your voice is critical, right? It's an alternative voice. We're so used to hearing the same voices. You know what I mean? The same articulation. We sound like puppets. You need genuine voices of people that speak from a genuine point of view. You're right. I don't like doing this type of thing because I genuinely don't care what people think about me. You know, I'm a simple animal. I bounce between home, work, kids, mom, and my house. Like I could sit at home and open a book and chill on a Friday. I got nothing. I'm the kind of guy you will struggle to get me out of my house to go meet you unless it's got to do with money. You can't tell me let's go have a drink. Doesn't make sense. It doesn't work for me. Listen, I have a deal with myself. I have milestones, targets that I want to achieve, right? This year alone, we want to create about 100 businesses. Simple as that. Nothing
100
big.
businesses?
I will create it. I have done it before. I will create it. We're going to create 100 businesses. We're going to capacitate, support, and enable. We're going to partner with people that are like-minded. I have 3-4 projects that link to that project. And I think when they are launched, they will speak volumes in terms of where I am and where I'm going. I think we, as a country and as a people, we've enabled people that shouldn't have voices have voices. So true leaders are not leading.
Unfortunately.
And that's why we are led in the manner that we are, right? And I'm honest enough with myself to say, Penuel, you don't have to like me, but respect me enough so I should respect you back, and let's deal with each other from a decent point of view. And if South Africans are honest with each other and we say white people don't know us, we know more about them than they know about us. This is our story. This is how we want to tell our story. I've had white boys, friends that I've had, say, "Oh, how do you know that? We don't even know that." And you'd be like, why is it so strange that I know something that you don't know?
It's because you're black.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I realized that growing up, I could visit them. They could never visit me. They never did.
Yeah.
Right? And one day it daunted me, and I asked, when we were older, I asked, but dude, why you never come to my house? Be like, hey, my dad has a problem with people like you.
Yeah.
What about people like me? And we had those discussions, and that's why me and the likes of Darren, them are still friends, because he's not necessarily bothered about what he comes from. He's honest with himself, and he's dealing from a level playing field. You know what I mean? He sees a brother in me because of the journey we've been through.
Yeah.
Listen, I don't care who runs South Africa, to be very honest. I just want it to be a fair leader. I would like it to be a leader that understands, that holds people accountable. Corporate South Africa is not held accountable for the many things they do.
Correct.
We have a banking system that's biased towards people of color, black people particularly. We have an insurance system that does the same thing. We have contracts that are given to service providers that speak from a business point of view. Yet we have a constitution that speaks about fair trade. It can never be fair if it sets up one over the other. And we have a judiciary that is not fair, that speaks for those that have deeper pockets.
Correct.
So you got to figure out how you cheat the business. I'm not, without mentioning names, I'm telling you a silly story. So I had a landlord that gave me a building that was falling apart. From day one, I complained.
Sure.
They didn't listen. We paid them rent for the whole year. We couldn't produce for the whole year. You can do the maths. Can you imagine a business that employs over 100 people? I'm not going to the total number of people, but over 100 people that need to be paid. Suppliers need to be paid. I still owe a few suppliers, but I'm honest enough to say to them, allow me time. I'm fixing these things, right? That business, these guys drown me, right? And the minute I start saying, I got you now. This is where you did wrong. They send lawyers. So they win. They win an eviction, short notice eviction, which is highly questionable. I don't want to go into that because that's a story for another day.
Sure.
I accept it. But I'm like, I'm appealing. It's a principle thing. They're not going to just push me off the table. And I think it's when I realized that there was a collusion taking place to shove me out. It forced me to take a step back and look at where I am. And I think I wasn't totally honest with myself where I am. Not a lot of people can get to where I am. And I'm there. It took me using smart movement, like moving a few pawns. Guess what? The lease agreement is just renewed. They're fixing the building. We're moving on. We forgot that there was an eviction. You know why? I shoved the same way they did. There's a need for that. We can't keep on accepting these things, Ben. You can't. Listen, dude, technically, in a kumbaya ideal world, people like you should be speaking to kids to change mindsets, right? You'd be some form of a platform or an enabler, let alone a philosophy, right? But people in your shoes want to be celebrities. They want to be seen, to be populist, to be liked. And man, after they like you, we're not the same. I'm not under any illusion. We're not the same. We're not built the same. I'm not racist, but I am full understanding.
I'm not racist. I've got white friends.
Yeah, no, not even about that. I am honest. I think honesty. When you're honest, you're racist in this country. When you're honesty, you're dividing and you're bridging. But in their quietness, they are entrenched in the divisions.
Unfortunately.
And we accept that. I'm saying it's not acceptable. It shouldn't.
I want to go back and defend parents because I want to deviate a lot.
Good for you and your parents.
Look, I want to start off by saying I realize you struggle with stereotypes, which is okay, and it's probably why you were meant to be an innovator and a creator. And there's this really nice clip. I don't know if I've posted it on my social media. Mr. Beast, many other people that have become very successful have gone on to use this. I think Will Smith as well. Be delusional, and you sound delusional, which I think is one of the recipes needed to do anything great. The idea of struggling to understand why people would be like, why you get offended if people are like, the mother must have dressed the daughter, because the data shows. Why would you be frustrated if a white person's like, how do you know this? Because we don't. It's stereotypes. Some of it is based on data, some on history, etc. The reality, and it's something that I had to understand because I have big issues with our schooling system. And I try to be intentional about words. You spoke about the judiciary. I tell people we don't have a justice system, we have a legal system, because a justice system would be just. I tell people I love education, but I don't like our schooling system. People are like, oh, you hate education. I'm like, I love education. I had to realize at some point that with all my criticisms and all the things that I felt was wrong, and I was like you, but solutions should start at home. The morals should be taught at home. We are, you just said it now, we are different. And when people realize I got 40%, 50% at school, I can only take advice from the guy who got 80% at school and what he's doing with his kids. And if he's taking his kids there, and if he's having big graduations, and I will follow him even though we're not the same. Which is why I was saying I do think we need to blame those of us who know better. We need to get louder and we need to empower people to be like, this is not the only way.
But you're wrong.
It's okay.
Why would you take advice from somebody that got 80% and you got 40? What makes them better? Because
you can only say this because you're privileged to be able to ascertain and discern.
You and I will punch you for that. No, I'm not going to fight you, but I'll punch you figuratively. You can never say I'm privileged. Privilege is if my grandchildren can afford to maneuver the economical environment.
Privilege cannot only be financial.
Hear me out, I'm getting there.
Sure.
That's one.
Sure.
It also, privilege comes from knowledge being part and being sound. Because sometimes knowledge does not sink in.
Sure.
So if it doesn't sink in, it's wrong. So let me give you an example. I said this earlier on to you. On a table of people that own bicycles, a man that's father bought him his bicycle does not have a voice. Get that? The problem is we think people that are academically smart or people that cram answers are better. 9 out of 10 people that were better than me in school are struggling in life.
Correct.
And because school teaches conformity and not independence, individuality, and creativity.
Correct.
And I think that is the problem. For me, I speak to people to understand where they're coming from, and that has given me perspective. I intentionally, I get on a taxi once a month. I do it intentionally because I sell what goes to people. I need to understand people. And that grounds me, it reminds me I'm from there.
Yeah.
I think because we don't do that, we miss cardinal principle, right? It is easy for a minister to speak about a people and ridiculing our people and opening a tap and people clapping hands, opening one tap.
Not just the minister, president as well.
Yeah, same nonsense to me, man. Hey, semantics, right? Shucks, call them that rather. So if that's the case, right, and we accept that, maybe we are the circus.
But what are you disagreeing with me?
You can't take advice from somebody that just got a better grade than you. What makes him more equipped? You said it yourself a while back. You said, not in this interview while you're speaking to somebody, you said, the reason we have doctors that are qualified because people that were unqualified created that system. Right? If that's the case.
The first person that opened a school or university didn't have a qualification.
Absolutely. And I agree with that. And hence I'm saying you can't take the 40%. You need to get different perspectives.
You can't say that.
Why can't I?
This is what I'm trying to explain about privilege, right? So you've got a light-skinned, big booty, very hot girl trying to explain, but we're not all the same. You have to look at character. And I'm like, you can't say it. So what? You understand that. And that's because you are smart. And I'm telling you that the average person out there doesn't understand that. And it's for people like you to then get louder and to tell them, don't just listen to the 80%.
I'll
These are the different options.
And
I'm saying the reason parents are struggling is because all they know is apparently that's the smart guy. That's the leader. That's the famous guy. Therefore, we will copy what they're doing. And I'm saying the people to blame are the ones watching them do that and be like, this is not the way. Those people must then rise up. It's like leadership. We are watching leaders destroy this country in corporate and in government.
We're watching people destroy this
watching
country.
People.
Like if you can't, that word.
Let me finish my point. So we're watching people destroy the country, and some of us claim that we know better and can do better, but we're not. And when I have to blame someone, we can blame them. Obviously, they're destroying the country. Mm-hmm. And we can blame voters, which I've done as well. And we can blame the people that fund these guys. I'm like, the biggest people to blame are the ones that know better, but are almost doing nothing. Because they're the ones that are actually letting us down. I want to tell a short story. So I was speaking to EXO, I think yesterday, and I was speaking about this concept of colonization. Mm-hmm. So I don't want to use it in the term that people know, but going to this thing of knowing better. One of the reasons our families are so broken and messed and we have generational curses and the like is because some of the younger people who know better, they try to speak to the elders, they try to challenge, and they get told you're young. What do you know, etc. And then they leave, they move. They could move to the city, they could move overseas, etc. And my whole thing was, if you know better, you almost have a responsibility to go and colonize your family. You almost have a responsibility to go and challenge your elders, defeat them, and then create new systems that are better. Whether it's the Cadres, the Jews, whoever you want, you're like, I have seen better for the family. I've seen gentler. You almost have a responsibility to be like, I will go fight and I will defeat my own family for better for all of us. I mean, we speak about Oshaka Zulu and consolidating the Zulu nation. Today, in retrospect, people are like, that was a good thing. At the time, it wasn't. Mm-hmm. At the time when you're challenging things, it's not. But if you claim to know better and then you argue with your mom and she's like, this is how we've always done it. I will spend 100,000 on your graduation. You're like, no. You're like, I will challenge you. You dare have that graduation. Watch what's going to happen. And I want to make it a point so that the next time you guys host anyone else's graduation and you're taking out loans that are going to strangle this family, I will rock up to each and every one of them and I will destroy them. Okay. Because I need you guys to change. And I will fight you and you will hate me. In 2 generations, in a generation, in a few years' time, when people are like, this family doesn't do that anymore. Because Lesego at some point said, until you have built a business, and that business is passively funding graduation parties, you will not have a graduation party. So we created a new family culture.
Agreed. That part, I can agree with that. But the term privilege we use very loosely. I take exceptional offense when people say, I am where I am because certain family members enabled me to be there. It is privilege. It is privilege when nobody in the DNA sweats for it anymore. That's what privilege is. White people have years of privilege. You cannot begin to say your first pool of BEE are privileged. Yes, they got a lot of money, but that money could have conditions. I don't know, but I'm saying it will be privilege when the Mandela's grandchildren lived 10 times better than what he lived or he was supposed to have lived, right? It is privilege only then. It's like saying, I have this, we fight about this always with my mom. The term choice, the word choice, it's based on where you're sitting. You know, my mom used to say, you always have a choice, Lesego, to do right. And I'm like, you're wrong. It's not the same as a person that comes from everything. Their choices are better. Because their choices are better, their circumstances are better. Right? So they're already a step ahead. We also need to be honest with that. The fact that we are reminded 30 years, it's 30 years, we must move on. This P must fall off the table. Maybe it needs to be changed. There's a need for skilled black people to participate in the government value chain. There is a need, technical skills and so forth, right? And we have a large number of white people that don't have qualification, have experience. When do we speak about how we merge the two and enable a country to get better, right? That's one. There's a hate from farmers, Afrikaner Boere farmers, largely not liking the black farmers because the perception is that black farmers are given. They neglect the fact that their generational wealth is also given because these farms are passed down, right? When the shoe's on the other side, it's always easy to have an opinion. It's how you deal, right? My issue is I'm tired of having discussions about what the problems are. I think we know what the problems are in this country. The question is, what are we doing about them? Are we going to continue perpetuating the same vicious cycle? My daughter's going to grow up in the same vicious cycle that I grew up in. Her only voice is going to be limited to the platforms I created for her, relationships I created for her, or her voice is genuinely going to resonate and going to speak an African tale. Look at this classic situation. The us and them syndrome. We had the rugby. No game was cut offline. We were all connected.
There's no load shedding.
Yeah, soccer we didn't. Let that sink in for a second.
Never mind soccer, the matric exams.
Yeah, even that, I was going to go there.
Yeah, there was load shedding during matric exams.
That should tell you about the level of education, what we think of it, right? And we quietly, in an ideal world, we say, let's all start from scratch. In an ideal world, let's race, right? Let's see who gets there. But the system is rigged to a point where if you join the system, you're either going to conform at some point, right, and accept it and take what they give you,
yes, or
you're going to be labeled as crazy. I mean, I'm uncontrollable, I'm told. And I laugh about it and I say, who has tried to speak to me and I did not listen or did not raise an opposing view that is legitimate, right? Who? In a beautiful world, I wouldn't be sitting here with you. I would have probably quadrupled my business in 2 years with the monies that we lost.
You wouldn't be sitting here with me.
I'd be sitting, not now.
But you'd be sitting here with me.
I'd sit down with you at some point, but I'm saying I'd be making more money.
Yeah, you'd be making more money, but you'd be sitting with me.
At some point it would happen,
yeah,
right? But all I'm saying is that time would limit you, right?
I hear you.
And maybe...
Hey, Sponga, the business losses. Hey, at least we get to sit with Lesego now.
So it also forced me to listen to myself. I don't like platforms for two reasons. We create martyrs out of people, right?
Create?
Martyrs out of people. Martyrs.
What's that?
Like we create godlike complexes in people. Let me give you an example. And forgive me, I don't know the gent.
Which gent?
I'm going to mention. I think he's an exceptional talent. I just think my view, how he's doing things, could have done them differently to be way ahead. Is it called Crazy Socks Boo or something?
Oh, Boo Skinny Socks.
Yeah, him.
Crazy Socks Boo.
Yeah, him. So, sorry, man.
I think it was Pusi Songwenya, if I'm not mistaken.
Sure.
Is his name.
I apologize, my good man. He's an amazing talent, right? And I think he probably missed the buck. And these are people I try to work with. So I'm creating this crazy thing right now, three moving pieces. What I'm creating currently is going to enable your average person that's designing, that has a label, trying to get it out, to have a pop-up store in a mall for free, but not his alone, him and a number of people, and leverage that and sell.
That's dope.
But
isn't that what Young Designers Emporium was trying to do? YD?
but they failed because they were marginalizing a certain group of people.
Sure.
And
but they were trying.
They were trying. But,
so
but
we can improve on
listen
what
to
they
the
do.
difference. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Nothing is new under the sun. Then you take Edcon is losing a lot of money.
It's been.
It employs a lot of people. It's losing a lot of money because most businesses in South Africa have not yet conformed to that 21st century of doing business. And
You want to fire people?
No. You're not hiring people. I'm saying you're creating value adds. You're not taking away from them. You're creating value adds. And the value adds can only exist when we do a revenue share. We cannot be bringing value adds and being told, you're a delivery boy, you deliver it, now get off the table, leave. We are walking in the room and we are saying, I am present. I am actionable and I'm participating. And by doing that, we'll have lesser people breaking into your house because we all are playing our part. The problem with this economy is that this economy is not inclusive. We can stand here and argue till Timbuktu. It is not inclusive. We lost the deal with about 220 million US dollars for the record in Rwanda. Because
220 million US dollars
for 5 years, yes, because
Jesus
I was
Christ.
struggling to get my bank to help me sort out a guarantee process for the client. And all the bank could say is, oh yeah, we're sorry.
A guarantee process.
Yeah. That they needed to, in terms of them dealing with the guys that side and creating a process where payment was, you can create those things on your own, but because money is coming from outside, you need to be smart about how you do them. Because also, it needs to be done in a method that creates comforts for both sides.
I need to tell the story, man. Was it Dr.
Sure.
Lilao? Please don't lose your train of thought, no?
Sure.
What's the name of this Sfaku cement?
Sparko.
What is it? Sparko.
Sepako cement.
It's Sparko.
Sepako, S-E.
That's how you pronounce it, Sparko.
Sepako. Yeah.
These minority languages that we need to learn to pronounce.
I think it's somebody's surname.
Dr. Lilao Mohuba.
Yeah.
It's a very nice video that you can find on YouTube. He tells the story of when they were building a Sepako cement.
Mm-hmm.
They went around trying to fundraise.
Mm-hmm.
And they got a phone call about this guy in Nigeria looking to invest. And they were like, yeah, but Nigerians are scammers, no ways. So they didn't want to listen to the guy. Someone was like, listen, this is a really big business person. Please meet with them. And they met with the guy and they checked the guy's profile and they were like, oh shit.
That's only when they realized.
This
right?
guy is a big deal. And he says one of the issues they had is they needed money for something. I don't know if it was a plant or whatever the case may be. And this guy was like, I'm going to send the money. Just give me your banking details.
That's easy. He is that simple of a man.
So the guy's like, I've sent the money. They're like, no, we haven't received it. And then that thing came back with, Nigerians. Wow. Only to find out that the bank had frozen that
Money.
transaction because they were like, it's money from Nigeria. Yeah, anyways, to cut a long story short, Aliko Dangote is the biggest cement manufacturer, one of the biggest in the world, the biggest on the continent, invested in Sipaku. He's one of the minority shareholders, I think, with Dangote, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, he is.
And he invested in that time because he was trying to get into South Africa.
Through
Cyril and Putuma Nhleko blocked him from
buying
PPC and
PPC. He wanted to buy PPC cement.
What's the other one?
I don't know that
There's
one.
PPC and Afrisam.
But
Yeah, they
he
blocked.
wanted PPC. He wanted PPC more than anything.
Yeah.
Because-
They blocked, but Dangote was like, back door, Baba.
And I like that.
You bet. And I think at some point there was a shortage of cement in South Africa, and Sparko was the only one that was. Anyways, apologies. Just that thing of we can't do business because there's. I'd call it sabotage. I'll call it sabotage.
I agree.
Christo Wies has raised it. Aliko Dangote has raised it. I think the late Dr. Richard Maponya has raised it, that it is almost easier to do business outside of the continent and even within the continent. And you're like, why?
Within the continent.
What the hell?
Within the continent. We went to Rwanda.
You lost a $220 million deal.
We went to Rwanda, right? In 2 days, we had a business registration, a tax clearance. We had registration document. We had a bank account in 2 days.
Yeah, those same gentlemen spoke about the ease of setting up a company. And Rwanda is one of the places. I think there's two others on the continent that are also quite progressive in that.
Ghana's there as well. But my point is, it goes back to whether we want to acknowledge it or not. You're allowed to play, to participate, as long as you know your place. The minute you don't know your place, you're a problem. And as a problem, systematically you get dealt with.
Yeah.
I could give you names of businesses that failed, that were deterred, that were dealt with.
Can I
badly.
raise some names now from my side? Just stuff I read online, specifically for black people. I know Vusi Tembowayo raised it when he was here. Sisa Ngebulana, Reposis, billion rand, multi-billion rand property business that looked like there was some sabotage there. Babu Kandani Msibi raises it on Twitter almost every day, and he blames the governor of the Reserve Bank, Lesego Modise.
Yeah.
Because their insurance business, I think it's 360 Life, he feels it's being sabotaged. I remember Kulufelo Maponya, he's got a stake in SA Home Loans, in Afgri. Some of the deals that they've done where when it went to the commission, I forgot what's the name of the commission. They normally name it after the judge. They also limited the scope, like the State Capture Commission. When you're like, please look at this, like, oh no, this is not within the scope.
This is no-go area.
Can we look at Steinhoff? Oh no, that's not within the scope. And you're like, oh, so the scope is only our Iqbal survey and us black business owners. Unfortunately, it seems like there is an agenda, specifically for black businesses, but maybe others could argue for others as well. I wanted to make this point that we'll disagree and it's okay. We'll debate it on another day. I do think there are levels to privilege. And I do believe that most people need to be self-aware of what I would call minor privileges are. Looks, which family you come from, which cultural tribe you come from, what you were exposed to, and to a point where when I sit, I think I was speaking to some Afrikaans guys, or I was explaining why I'm comfortable speaking to Afrikaans people. It's because of where I grew up playing rugby and those things, where I take it as like a minor privilege. That when they like, Pen, we really like you. That other guy, I'm like, no. It's because I grew up in a certain way. That guy is from Ekasi, so you have to understand that he's not like me, and don't use me as the template. You have to consider that guy as well, because he's really good. Just because he can't speak Afrikaans is unfair, because you also can't speak Setswana as an example.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I think that's very important. I want us to get to, we spoke about, you didn't graduate. Businesses you've been into and the business you're in now. Because maybe we've got another 10, 15 minutes.
What difference? I was group CEO of...
After you finished varsity.
So we finished varsity. I can't disclose. We developed a solution and we got paid good money. I didn't see that.
You got paid good money?
Oh, we got paid good money.
What? You can't give an amount?
I can't give an amount. I can't give what was the solution.
You guys signed non-disclosure confidentially.
Let's say we develop a platform for a bank, and the bank came on board. Myself and 12.
Can I make a reference, because I know the story, without exposing anything?
Sure.
Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, and a couple of other guys, Reid Hoffman and the likes, they brought two companies together. I think it was X.com and something else, to build what was PayPal. And then they sold to, I don't know if it was eBay or someone.
You're right. eBay.
And they got a big payout, and that became the seed capital for what Elon's become today. You had a similar...
So almost similar. So we had that, and at the time,
sold the solution to a bank.
We were young.
You got paid out, boy.
We got paid out, and I think when my mates were excited about the money, I was thinking about the next move. For me, it was an ends to a means. Even now, it's an ends to this. Everything needs to play towards getting you where you need to go.
Yeah.
Right. And I always say the difference is that it doesn't matter how you distract me. The objective is that I'm moving towards where I'm going.
Yeah.
They can distract as much as they can. At some point, we'll have a very decent conversation, myself and them, because I'm going to own this landscape. I'm starting to understand powers, like centers of pulling, and I'm starting to understand. I think I like building things, but for the first time, I understand building without intention. It's just a building. It's just building. But when you build and there's an intention, and in the quietness of how I move, I would like to think I'm activating people. It's very nice once in a while to get a lot of messages from people to say, hey man, because of you, I'm looking at this way and I'm doing this over here. Would you want to come to the table? And you're like, I like where this is going. I think that's the greatest pleasure, the best situation I've ever been into. I went out with my nephew and my daughter in Senton. I have a bad habit. I love sneakers. I think that's my vice. and they had told me there's a pair of sneakers, a particular pair of sneakers, and I was going to go get it. And while we in Sandton, a young man walks over and says, "Hey man, how are you?" "Hey, Lesego." And I'm like, "Okay." I'm like, "What now?" Deep down, I'm like, "What now?" It's like, yeah, since, and he doesn't look familiar, so it's not ringing any bells. And the guy says, "Please, man, can I have a sit down with you? Would like to speak to you for a moment, and I would like my partner to be there." Like, "Where's your partner?" He's like, "No, in the store. Get my friend." Then he picks up a phone. He phones his girlfriend or partner. And then, "Baby, please come in." Then she joins up. We're sitting at Mug and Bean. My daughter's here. My nephew's there. And the guy says, "Thank you." I'm like, "Huh? For?" He says, "You don't understand. When you were still at the business, when your business was in the house, which is the house where we built the solution, when you were using that house, I came to see you. I spent 2 nights there. And you were very decent to me. And, the advice you gave me, I started that business. That business became the foundation that me and her have a house today, and we are doing this. I'm also doing this. I'm like, "Oh, yeah, cool." And he's like, I employ people. And it didn't sink in. But I remember while he was speaking, I looked at my daughter. And she was so clued in. I was like, okay. Because I like seeing her reaction, especially when you put her in a room with important people. Whether she has a grasp of how important they are or not. She's been in a room with very, very important people. Because I'm a single father. I take my daughter everywhere. You know what I mean? I take her everywhere. Sometimes I go meet important people with her because I choose not to abdicate parenting.
Yeah.
Right? But my point is, and the guy says, "Oh, you know what I've done? I've named my daughter after you." I'm like, "Huh?" I'm like, "No. He says, "You don't understand what you did." I'm like, "What?" And I think it was my first aha moment. I realized that some of us have a responsibility to ignite in people fires that needs to be ignited. And it's just that I don't like the attention, because I think the attention puts me on a stage that creates a mark on my back, at the back of my head, and that's a distraction to a large degree. But I'm also starting to understand you play this game, you need to understand how to maneuver. And we're not going to achieve anything if you don't maneuver a certain way. And we're not realizing that we do not have a voice because we accept the status quo. It's about how you take that. And I've realized when you check institutions, when they do this, they really look into the matter and they still find a comforter, a cushion for themselves and give you something back. And I like those small wins, because those small wins will tell you a lot about where we're going.
Yeah.
Right? And that will change. I think the generation of my son, they're the amazing ones. It's sad that our kids don't understand the privilege. They have a privilege from a stepping stone point of view. They don't have to deal with the fundamental issues we dealt with, right? They go to certain schools, so the relationships are there.
Yeah.
Right? And I understand why certain cultures believe in marrying certain circles.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's always us that like pulling people from the mud that can come and disrespect us later on. These guys,
it's very high risk.
Yeah,
They could actually come and destroy
and that's my new
everything
song. That's my new song. I'm teaching them to understand their value, to say, you can't go and if you fall in love, sure, but
you're starting to become like the people you don't like.
No, I'm not.
Maybe not seeing it.
Let me tell you why.
It's okay.
No, let me explain to you why. You sometimes have to be completely insane or sound insane as a distraction to enable people to walk into a room. Listen, I can sound like them. I'm not them. If my kids and 10 other people's kids walk into this room, they're able to take supposedly the struggle forward, as opposed to you take it and you deal with the stresses of being set up, being played, being managed, and it's all about how you look at things. Look at it. Let me give you a basic example. Platforms like yours exist because content is boring on TV, because people that decide what goes on TV hook up their friends and their colleagues,
their family members.
You know what I'm saying? We don't pick on married.
Yeah.
Right? That enables you. So the disruption is, and I'm saying this, I'm I'm trying to speak to the salts, Dis-Chem. I'm building a model for them that creates about 1,000 jobs sustainably and creates a value chain, because I believe in that.
You're trying to speak to
The salts.
What's that?
the family that owns Dis-Chem, largest shareholder. And I'm saying to them, listen, alternative medication, natural remedies are the in thing. It's a big market, right? We have people selling Seymour, selling this, that, or the other, Celtic salt and whatnot. But we all are buying because we want to support people. And these things are natural remedies that heal. But they're not regulated. How long is it going to take before somebody with big pockets starts creating a regulation and they shut us out of the for deployment?
Into Dis-Chem, by the way.
You know what I mean?
Those pandemic years.
Yeah, so I'm saying, if we do that and we say, we understand this is your table, right? Can we build ours? Let us. If they understand that, we can build, right? We can build. And I think, hey, this is going to get me bashed. South Africans are narrow-minded. We are. I'll tell you why. South African we think we God's grace too. Black South African think they're better than African South Africans.
Of course they are.
White South Africans feel entitled everywhere else they go into the world because they're so used to hear people suck up to them.
Yes.
Right? Black South Africans, we think we're better than Nigerians because they don't have the infrastructure.
Of course.
But there's more dollar millionaires in Nigeria than in South Africa. Right? Same thing with Kenya. Same thing with Rwanda, Ghana. Those guys are liquid, right? They're liquid. There's more money circulating there. We don't. You know, I was saying something. Basic example. Show me 10 businesses made by government that are not tendering, enabled by government. I could wait. Show me 3 listed black businesses. Don't tell me about MTN. Right? I don't want to speak about those business dynamics that we don't understand in terms of that, how that deal was put together. But I'm talking about businesses. What, you know, there was a term that was coined, we're telling a good story in the government of the ANC. Let's tell a good story. Let's see. Show me. Don't tell me about Thandi and there are too many Thandis out there. But let's speak about Thandi wants a job. Yeah? I respect her for that. Let's deal with people that want to create an economy, a business. And why is it that it is always us that sabotage our own people? Yet we say we love our people. You know, Eastern Cape has ambulances that are rotting because,
Are you talking about those little contraptions that doctors
proper
ambulances?
Buffalo City has proper ambulances.
You remember those contraptions?
Yes, not ambulances or even the ones that pick up rubble. They're not using them because somebody's getting a contract to rent them, right?
Yeah.
Right? And we blame our people when Lesego gets 5 rand, he wants to stretch it to 100 because we don't have opportunities, right? But I find it very, very messed up that the same people that says this government is so corrupt are making more money from that same government. It is so funny. And
it's a narrative that they need to spread for the rest of us
and you know
to kind of be on their side.
You know what I mean? I'm a manufacturer, right? A food manufacturer. As a food manufacturer, I give people lab results, tests.
What's a food manufacturer? Because we know food farmers. You're not a farmer.
Well, we deal with the entire value chain from the farm to the fork. We do that.
This is the story I want people to know, not this philosophical numerology stuff.
I don't like that story. I think,
but we'll have to sit down at another time.
Yeah, that story will come.
But anyway, sorry, you deal with the entire value chain.
The entire value chain. We and the intention is
that's important for people to understand that we're speaking about tomato sauce.
How it
and
gets
you're
there.
saying we may farm the tomatoes, but what's more important is we do everything else for you to get to the tomato sauce.
We beneficiate. Sure. So and there's a need for that because we talk about, there's a lot of complaints we have about the status quo in government to date, but we're not honest in the sense that in 30 years, we still don't participate 2% in that value. And yet there are coined words like food security that are being shared. But what is government doing to protect the food? Yeah, they gave us everything. They gave us government, and they kept the means of production.
Sure, it was a good deal.
And we are saying we are in charge. What are we in charge of?
Parliament.
Huh? What are we in charge of?
I'm a tender.
Those are walls, dude. Those are temporary things. I mean, you know, my I'm not mentioning name, but one of the richest men in the world once said to me,
personally,
yeah, it is very painful when you do not understand your power and you let others tell your story, because that illusion will be your trap for the rest of your life. How many black businesses do you know that got to a point where the story can't resonate or grow itself further because there's a blockage? We kill businesses. Systematically, we kill businesses, right? We are told we don't know how to run businesses as black people. Yet I grew up in a house where my grandmother didn't go to school, but she ran a business. She knew maths. She was a mathematical genius, right? She knew numbers better than most people. She knew what marketing was, but she didn't use the word marketing. You know what I mean? She knew how to deal with people from a people's relationship. I mean, there were a number of people that sold alcohol and sold other things, but people used to go to her house, her space. There's a reason for that, right? We don't tell those stories. We are shameful of those stories. You know what I mean? At some point in my life, I was like, I don't like that story. You know, I don't like talking about it. But the older I get, I love that story, because I'm only realizing right now when I look at, sometimes, you know, my daughter's my greatest teacher. Like, I look at her and I'm like, whoa, at her age, I was doing okay, but she's not, right? How do I change that? How do I enable her? So you have frank discussions with her, not obviously at her level. You capacitate so she understands, right? She understands, you know, and you start appreciating the value of that lesson when a 6-year-old at the time turning 7, starts putting her carry money away. And then one day she's like, okay, I'm taking you out. I'm like, huh? She says, see, this is all my money. Let's go. I'm taking you out. Where do you want to go? You're like, clearly I'm not speaking to myself. Right? That's why I took a conscious decision to speak to my kids like they're grown up.
Yeah.
Right? And I always find myself laughing when third parties say, they're so mature or so wise. I'd be like, I don't know what you're expecting. You're right?
Yeah.
And if I have it my world, my way in my world, I'd equip my kids to be worldly citizens, not South African citizens. Because I think South Africa is a trap. It's the most beautiful place to be in. But we are not honest with each other as South Africans. We are not honest. Why do we have crime? We have crime because we are human. Human beings you can't sit there when there's no food and twiddle your fingers. Men will go out and do things, right? Wrong or right, they'll do things, right? And because of these things that we don't want to deal with, on the right-hand side, the system is using that excuse. You guys are just sitting. You guys don't want to do anything. You guys don't want to, you know? And I've realized also you get shoved by institutions, right? When there's a certain amount of money in your bank, people, from time to time, people want you to kind of indirectly come and explain. Huh? So I used to kind of play along to that. Today, I'm not about that. I'm like, do what you want. I'll deal with you later. I'm not doing this. Right? And that's understanding your power. And we need to be bold, man. I think South Africa started the right way to a degree. We lost the plot when we trusted other people with our own lives. Right? Your mother did not trust anybody but herself with you and your brother. Look where you are. But you have parents that trust government, that don't care whether their children go and have children and accept a 350 grant or whatever it is.
I think it's
right?
510 child grant.
But my point is, what does that buy in the scheme of things? What does that do? You have a child that you need to feed. That's another mouth. That's another problem. We're creating problems, right? We're creating problems. And people get offended when you tell them you should not be having kids. You shouldn't. You know, we need to start limiting these things and controlling these things because it's acceptable.
Bill Gates.
No, we need to. Not in that form. Not in that form. In the form that you there has to be a moratorium that
You need to have a plan.
Yeah.
You don't need to have money, but you need to have a plan.
Why do you have kids? I mean, why do you have 4 kids if you can't take care of one? And why?
I've got controversial theories about those things. But,
you know, so I look at the world that way. So if you look at the spaces and the gaps between my kids, it's huge. It's because when my son came to being, it helped me grow up. It like forced me to grow up and find myself. My daughter grounded me and made me find peace.
You must speak about your son more.
Right?
Not today.
I choose to protect him because he's closer to getting where he wants to go in life.
Okay.
I choose to protect him and deal with him at arm's length in that regard from a discussion point of view, because there are certain things we are actioning that enables him to have a decent footing.
Okay.
And I don't want him to be distracted because he might not have the same resilience I have in terms of dealing with people.
Okay.
Right? So I do that. And I create an advantage for my daughter because the perception is women are meeker, more acceptance, and they will take it. And actually, women are strategic creatures. Women understand survival better than most men. That's why when women, any feminine energy picks a partner based on survival. Nothing kumbaya about it. It's a science.
Any feminine partner?
Any feminine energy. Listen.
Picks a partner based on survival.
A scorpion picks a male partner that it can kill after conceiving. If it picks a stronger partner, it'll kill it. Women pick a partner on survival. Haven't you noticed women complain about looks?
Would you Jada picked Will because she's a scorpion? Is that what you were saying? Sorry. Please carry on. I'm sorry.
I will not entertain that discussion.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, but I'm just saying they do. I mean, they do. Women pick on a man that can provide and take care of family.
And that they have some level of control over to ensure that they get those things.
Well, I think they're smart
but
enough.
maybe that's a secondary aspect.
I think that's semantics. You know, either way.
Listen,
dude.
semantics.
Listen, fact. You and your partner, when you sleep with each other, you just enable the process. She decides when it happens. Because if she says no, it's rape.
Oh yeah, women are the gatekeepers.
So we are not in control. That's why.
Who's not in control?
Men are not. They think they are. They're not. Pillow talk trumps everything.
Jeez.
And I'll tell you why I'm saying that. Haven't you picked up that anybody you deal with that is partners involved in whatever you're dealing, pillow talk will always squeeze you. You'll never win that battle. If somebody's partner doesn't want you, the relationship doesn't last. Because she'll systematically drown it. So women
there are different men that walk the world, but I hear what you're saying. There are different men that don't move.
I agree. I agree. But I'm saying different men is whether you're forceful, diplomatic, or strategic. How many of us are strategic? I mean, I could tell you men that have been destroyed by not being sound enough to understand the kind of person that's sitting next to them.
Is that
right?
fact?
Do you know what I mean? And I think we also walk into situations in relationships without sharing our expectations with the other party. And because of that, we have that. There's that imbalance. Because that party is quiet. When you're like, I want love. When the person only gives you love, you complain. Right? You complain. It's not about that. You know, my aunt, one of my aunts gave me a book called Women Want Love, Men Need Respect. I read that book. It's a very interesting book and it's very factual. I used to say, I want love. I don't care about love. For me, love is respect.
Sure.
You show me respect consistently, I will be the man you want me to be. Right? Within reason. But we do not deal with each other that way. And we also do not let beautiful women work for their keep. Because you're pretty, you're acceptable.
Why must you work for her keep? She's pretty. That's what she brings to the table.
That's the problem.
When I'm stressed, Baba, I look up like, motivation, yana.
In an ideal world, we'd let big muscular men run the world because they're strong.
Of course.
But in the real world, it doesn't work like that.
Well, in the real world today, because I mean, we don't need cattle that are men. We need men that are computers.
So
I'm gonna let you close off. I just want to raise bookmarks specifically for what we're gonna discuss next time. Sure. I want you to, when we sit down again, to go from when you got your payout, what businesses you went into then, how you got into food manufacturing, in food manufacturing, one of the things I'd like you to speak about, and it's outside of even food manufacturing, the intellectual property, IPs, patents, copyrights, the impact of those things. Building businesses across the African continent, and why Africa is struggling to industrialize as a continent. I kind of know the answers, but I'd like us to have a conversation about it.
Are we struggling?
Are we struggling?
Are we struggling?
The short answer is yes, and it's designed so. Okay. Yeah, there are certain people that are ensuring.
Fair enough.
You've mentioned your daughter. You mentioned your own upbringing. The importance of teaching your children and exposing them in business is something I'd like to touch on even more. Mm-hmm. The impact of politics on business. I think we spoke about it, but I'd like us to unpack it even more and even speak about tenders and how tenders are being misused. Because a big chunk of, I don't know about the British history, but a big chunk of the white Afrikaner economy even today was
built on that.
Was built on tenders, and then they went and they went further from there.
And so forth. Yeah.
I wanted to speak to you about black tax because you mentioned it, and this concept of how you become the oldest in your family either by age or by money.
By default.
If you have the money, and maybe we'll add the other layer of if you are smart enough, which we spoke about colonization earlier. If you are smart enough, you should through merit. Families should be led by, this is our family leader, but they're 22. You're like, yeah, but they're the most competent and the most capable.
I agree.
To take this family forward.
I agree. Spiritually, when I went through my spiritual journey, I had no context within family, right?
What's a spiritual journey?
I used to see the world differently. I used to get sick a lot. I used to say things and they would happen and I used to feel like something is wrong with me. And when I wanted to understand how that works and how we connect as people, I had no context in family because nobody in the family said they knew of these things. But the more you dug, the more you started understanding there were layers. Like my grandmother would say, but my father used to do this. Her father used to do this. Who's my great-grandfather? Be like, huh? So how did he do that? You know what I mean? This is what happened. And connecting with your creator, I think it's imperative for one, from a spiritual point of view, to connect with your creator. And I think to connect with something higher than you, there has to be a willful intention of purity in terms of that. And I think that's where there's all this hypocrisy that's taking place where, hey, abantu. It comes from people being not understanding themselves and people feeling lost and somebody saying this is a solution. And that solution creates other problems.
Of course.
You know, and if you understand anything about Africans, a basic rationale, if your totem is a lion, for example, and I'm a hyena, the odds of you and I getting along or believing in the same things are very slim. And we are ignorant of that. But people go to people that give them medicine or herbs, moody, that might be even linked to their totem's genetics, which is sacrilege, it's like blasphemy. But we do that and we enable that. And it is so funny when it suits people that are teaching us knowledge. They know how to tell us certain things. But when they don't want to share because of their lack of understanding, they would tell you, you're asking too much. I went through that journey where you would ask certain questions. I mean, my first experience was 2021. For the first time in my life, I was curious about a lot of things, and I was in a place where everything I believed in was being questioned by me because I was very confused. And I went to see somebody, and I took my partners at the time there. And
plural.
Well, yeah, I do believe.
No,
not in that sense. Not in that sense, but I do believe polygamy has a part to play in certain instances, not for everybody, and it does not necessarily mean you have money. You can be, because traditionally you would have, if you pass on, right? Your brother would be a father figure to your children, and would be a brother of some sort, not a partner to your wife from a support point of view. But because people like changing things, they say, hi, she's also my wife, because that's how they amass and they take from you what's yours.
We'll discuss it on another day. You went with your partners to...
So we went to see somebody and the person did not ask how we would want to get help. The person assumed. And I was like, I don't think your bones being thrown down can answer me, because I do not believe in that, because those bones are dead. Because they're dead, you'd need my permission to voma, to give my moya inside there, for you to connect and tell me about me, right? And tell me what the problem is. But you're not telling me what what is it that you are saying to them without sharing. You're just saying voman. And that's what people don't get. There are doors we open. When they open tomorrow, we struggle. You know, I genuinely believe that I exist because there were men and women that worked this earth way before I existed. And I need to acknowledge them. I don't understand God of Abram, because technically there's no difference in saying God of Abram and me saying Mudimu Abu Rahwe boy, which is my ancestors. He's mine. He's proved. He moves in there. Why should I call Abraham? Abraham is not linked to me. Doesn't speak to me. I can never. I don't have anybody in my family that's named Abraham, Moses, or whoever. I call
no Moses in your family, Baba.
No. Maybe your family, not my family. Don't have a Moses. I don't have a Moses, and I think that's where we go wrong. We are telling half truths. And we are omitting the truth because the economics of the pocket, people want to take of people, right? And I always ask this question: when people didn't have money, how do they deal with these issues, right? I know spirituality. A king had his own spiritual advisor, and that person could not just share advice to everybody. It depends if it's a communal thing, right? But communities also had people they go to, right? If people had those type of things to connect, and Amazulu, but Africans say Mazulu say Nkulunkulu. It's that big. We have an understanding of that. We had an Nkulunkulu before the Europeans came, so we believed in a God before they came. It is a fallacy that we were not civilized. We are not civilized because we didn't come with ships to invade other people. We are not civilized. It is so funny that Africans, black Africans at that, are always told that we are the problem, we don't know this, but it is our history that's being hidden from us, and we're being limited to engage on it because somebody else understands it better than we do. That, for me, it's a problem. And I even think this thing among Goma right now, it's creating chaos. We're creating chaos. We're creating a lot of, we're feeding energies we know very little about. I think a lot of truths are going to come out this year because it's a year of karma. I feel like those that want money will make money. Not all of them. Depends on where your energy is, right? If you understand how that works, people will make money. This is a year, the focus of this year is going to be about money. And I'll put down money with you, and I'll say next year, it'll be an energy of connectivity. People want to connect and be deep, kumbaya. These things happen. It happens every now and then, but we keep on missing the buck in terms of Penuel and Lesego saying, our fathers failed. Our grandfathers tried. That's the truth. Our fathers failed because our fathers were absent. Our generations, our fathers were largely absent, and because of that absentees, we pull from an ancestral point of view from our mothers, and that does not allow us to center ourselves properly, and we are confused, right? And we go to buildings. I used to, I grew up in an Anglican family, I'll be honest with you, and I used to go to church every Sunday. My mom passed away, I think I was about 9, 10. And one of the first discussions, so I was asked to sit down because I was always a vocal kid, to sit down with the priest. And And I asked them a simple question: why would God take my mother when I need her the most? And all he could say to me is, why are you speaking politics? And that left a bitter taste in my mouth, right? And I then realized that I don't think this man is necessarily here to build. He's here as an ends to a means for him. And that became how I deal with the world. I wanted to understand things. I wanted to understand, if there's a God, why are there people sleeping hungry? If there's a God, why are people struggling the way? Why are we not equal? If God loves us the same way, why does Penuel have a platform and Lesego doesn't have, and if Lesego wants one, right? Obviously there are dynamics to that, but my point is, the fundamental principle is that we systematically connect to our African heritage when it suits us, and we connect to our European heritage when it's, because we do have a European heritage, right? This whole walking into houses and finding a picture of Jesus, it doesn't make sense. It never has. And also having churches that are empty while people sleep in the streets. People are sleeping in the streets. And what kind of God do we serve if people are saying, you must pledge your tithes, whether you have or not, 10% must. You're obligated to. But God wants you to give your last money to him or his servant while your children are suffering. And that's why we have vultures. We have these, my mom called them charismatic churches, you know? And because people want hope. Sadly, the fraudsters are the ones that are giving hope because they're taking from people. Because people like Pen...
Our motivational speakers.
Please, man. Because people like you only stick to your platform, and you understand that even in your platform, you can speak as much as you want to, but in order to get somewhere, there are certain things you can't be aggressive about right now, because then they would then deter you. So sometimes to get into the door, you need to be a good boy, right? And spiritually, I was never a boy to begin with. My father wasn't a boy. My grandfather wasn't a boy. And I'm not going to be anybody's boy. And I'll die for that. You know, somebody said to me, what you're doing, you're changing things so much, it'll kill you. Like, I'm dead already. If I fail at this, I'm dead. If I fail my daughter, I'm dead. Can't afford that luxury. Not my father. My father probably could afford to sit there and say, I'll conform and we'll conform and so forth. But I choose not to. We are on a time bomb. South Africa's imploding. You'll see after the election, there's going to be chaos. But I also say, I feel like these elections, there's going to be a lot of votes are rigged story coming out, because people will not want to accept defeat. Because politics play that. They will guilt us through that, right? And spiritually, I feel like there's a necessity for an EFF. Africans always had their own way. And people like that, you know, you don't have to like the man. He does raise valid points. We don't want to deal with them. Maybe how he raises them, we have an issue with. But Mr. Malema does have valid points about the status quo. And I've picked up a pattern. Every time he speaks his truth and it hits home, people play victims and they vilify him, right? I believe the ANC needs to go back to the people, and it owes them an apology, because technically the constituent that empowered the ANC to be in power are not ANC members, but it's the ANC members that decide who's in power. So your voice is needed to get us in the door, but once we get in the door, we don't want your voice anymore. That is the relationship. That's why I think my new thing is democracy needs to come to the fundamental base, what an African is, Bailey. And we need to take democracy from that. But the current democracy that you must vote and put the people you want in power. But what if you don't want any of those people, but you must still vote? So we're being played. You're kind of systematically forced to conform. right? And you're limited to choices, and we will always be caught between the real ANC of Zuma to the ANC of Cyril, right? Right. That's what they say. Sure. You know, there are these things, and I find that so funny because when these guys got along and they were stealing, all of them, which I believe they did, and I stand to be corrected, but they did us wrong. And I don't like politics because no politician ever stands up and says, I am sorry, and takes accountability. So technically, we wonder why our kids want to be like Kenny Kunen. Yet, we encourage them to stand there. I don't know.
Let's shut it down. I'm not going to read the rest of my notes. I've got so many counters to some of the things you said. I have an issue with us versus them, because I think even within the white community, they are split. And we seem to have this desire to want to be united as blacks, which I don't think is wise. I do think you're assimilating, and you may have a blind spot to some of the aspects.
Sure.
And yeah, I want us to speak more about business when you sit down.
Let me put, can I just come in there? One more thing. You once, when you started, you used to speak about your people. Yeah? I don't care who I work with, as long as the person treats me with a certain level of respect, common understanding, and professionalism. Judge me on the merits of what I bring to the table. Don't let my color make you do me favors, right? But in the same breath, the us and them is the loudest echo in the room because it exists. That's why we are not in certain spaces. People often bash when you say us and them because you're saying what they know is a fact, but they don't want to deal with. That's all I'm saying. You know what I mean? I will say that, and don't get me wrong. The guy, there's a gentleman by the, I'm just gonna mention his first name. His name is Yahir. I regard him as a friend. He's from a legal fraternity, but I regard him as a friend because he's dealt with me with a certain level of kindness and decency, and he saw a man. And for him to say, this is wrong, this is right, you're wrong here, you're right here, and we move from their point of view. It's not about color. When I say us, there are people that want to fix and build this country. You're right? Those people, they don't care whether you're black or you're white. They want to fix this country because they don't want to go anywhere, right? And when you speak about us and them, I'm inclusive of those people. There's a lot of South Africans that want to fix this country. White too. Yeah. There are a lot of white. I mean, we had a car situation that we took a car to a mechanic, and he did some very dubious things to the car. And it was an Afrikaner man, that mechanic, that told me that helped me resolve that issue. And I respect him for that. Because he didn't see color. He saw a right and a wrong. And if us as South Africans would deal with each other that way, we'd go far. But we can't also be ignorant that there are whites and there are blacks. There's an us and there are them. We deal differently, right? And that the fact that to a large degree, there's a large number of black people that are fearful of white people and vice versa. It's the facts of where we are. The problem I have with this country, when people say we must get over stuff, we need to get over stuff, apparently. But when you say this is the problem, they don't want to listen. So one side is dictating, and at some point we're going to have an insurrection.
You believe so?
I know so. Listen, I know so. Human behaviors have patterns. A man will ask to be put in a position for a certain time, and when he doesn't get it, he will go get it forcefully. History has proven that. Where do you think we're going with these leaders that run their parties perpetually? We're going there.
My concern with the us versus them is every time we have these conversations, a lot of people are disappointed by certain leaders, and it's because we keep being disappointed because we assume they're us.
No, they're not.
And there are times when we're not willing to listen to other people because we believe they are them. And it's a nuanced understanding that we need to teach people, because I think it's one of the biggest reasons. Yes, racial division wasn't created by black people, but we're here now.
We need to deal.
But there are black people that are misusing it, and there are white people that are
Abusing
unfortunately victims of it, even though they are not the people that created it. So
fully agree with you.
but we'll chat about it.
Fully agree.
Lesego Modise, thank you so much for joining us,
Sure,
and
man.
I look forward to sitting down with you again soon.
Sure. In 3 years' time.
Hey, yakhuluma lo mjingo.
Thank you. Oh,
That was like what? 2.5?
Jeez.
3.
I've got a lot of views, man.